Cool. How's it going?
It's going wonderfully.
It's going wonderfully.
It's a beautiful day out there today.
Mayor Nathan Bocks.
Yes, sir.
Did you ever think about respelling your last name with an X and be a little more hip or something like that?
I actually use that spelling at restaurants and anytime anybody asks me for my name, yes. Are you just saying B-O-C-K-X?
Or B-O-X?
B-O-X would be a whole lot easier. Would have made my life a lot easier for many, many years.
Right, right.
I actually, while we're on the subject, I give fake names at restaurants all the time simply so I don't have to worry about the spelling.
Do you?
Yes.
So how does that work during COVID?
Still worked out all right with pickup. You know, there are actually some restaurants in town that know me by the fake names that I use.
Oh, really?
Yeah. There's the one I use a lot is Merlin, because that's my dog's name.
Okay.
And so I when I'm calling in for pizza, I'll say it's Merlin,
Merlin.
they know it's me. So just easier. It's just easier.
What's your favorite pizza place?
I really like Papa Romano's.
Papa Romano's?
Yeah, over on South Washington. Great pizza. Although if I'm going to go and sit, it's Skiles. We love Skiles.
Skiles is great.
I really miss one of the biggest things I missed during the pandemic was sitting at the bar on a Friday night at Skiles with my wife with a pizza and a pitcher of PBR.
Yeah.
And just sitting and enjoying the atmosphere. And what was great when I was running for mayor is most of the people in there had no idea who I was.
Right.
Yeah. It was really kind of nice to just be a regular guy sitting there.
So you get a lot of attention then when you're walking around Holland and downtown.
I'm much more recognizable now than I used to be.
Right.
I really am. And there's still a lot of people that don't know who I am. There's still a lot of people that go, we have a mayor in Holland. I didn't even know we had a mayor in Holland.
Yeah.
Which is fine too. I don't expect people to know that, the incredibly exciting life of the mayor of a small town in Michigan, but it is interesting to be recognized a lot of places where I go.
Right.
So, yeah.
Coming from, you said you're a lawyer in your day job?
My day job, I'm an estate planning lawyer.
Yeah,
which is not the kind of lawyer that they make TV shows about.
Yeah. So you're not being recognized all the time.
No,
so
exactly.
You become mayor of a town, and it's like, whoa, where did this kind of almost celebrity status come from?
Well, it's
in your town.
That's a bit of a stretch, Kyle,
in your town though.
I've been heavily involved in the community for years, so I did know a lot of people in the community. I've obviously got a lot of friends in the community, but I was not recognized most of the time by people that I didn't know. Mm-hmm. And I have people come up to me in the street occasionally. We were out of town over the weekend and somebody said, "Oh, I saw you in Pentwater." I'm like, "How did you?" I didn't realize that people knew that I was out and about. So,
right.
Which is kind of cool in a way. And I love the job, and I don't mind the notoriety. I don't mind the attention that comes along with it. That's just one of the things that you sign up for.
Right. So one of the things about being a mayor, obviously when you became mayor here, obviously you're just you're being recognized a lot more. So what other? How else has it been being a mayor?
I was elected just before the pandemic. So the election, I was elected in November of 2019 and was just getting my feet under me. I knew a lot about the city. As I said, I've been involved in a lot of things. I've been at every city council meeting, or almost every city council meeting for the previous almost 2 years. But the way that the process works here is the election is the first Tuesday in November, and you are sworn in as mayor the following Wednesday night.
Wow.
So you get 8 or 9 days to go from, I'm just a regular person to now I'm the mayor of the town. And while you always think that you know a lot and you think you know what's going on, there's so much that people just don't see at the background, all of the things that are in the works that the public hasn't heard about yet. And so when we got through November and the holidays and January, and then February hit, and then all of a sudden it's the pandemic, and just as I thought I was starting to understand the way things worked, the whole world changed.
Right.
And it ended up for a while in March and in April and into May, there were only a handful of us in City Hall. We had the police department, we had the fire department, but I closed down my law office. Right. And there was essentially the city manager, the assistant city manager, the head of HR, and myself on an entire floor of City Hall. And we were running the city. It was weird and crazy, and it was that way for months and months and months. And we literally just opened up all of City Hall back to the public a week or two ago.
Right.
And so for the vast majority of time that I've been mayor, it's been a really unusual circumstance.
So you're almost kind of re-entering that phase again of, all right, now I gotta learn how the rest of this is supposed to work.
Right, exactly.
And it's 2021 now.
Exactly. The elections again coming up this November. I'm running unopposed, so I don't have to worry about that. So I'll get another 2 years as mayor in a normal life. But it was very, very possible that almost the entire time that I was mayor of Holland would have been during COVID had I not been reelected. And it's a transition back. We had a city council meeting last night. We had one of our study sessions. Typically, our study sessions take place upstairs in City Hall in a training room, not in city council chambers. Well, we haven't done that since last February. And so for all of us to be back in the room, in a different room in that different space, which is a much more relaxed space than city council chambers, sitting up at the dais with TV cameras on, because we record all of the meetings that take place in city council chambers. It was odd and refreshing and wonderful all at the same time to be kind of back into that environment and go, it's starting to feel like normal again, which is a great thing.
It's kind of like me walking around my work, in the front offices when there wasn't anybody there, and now people are coming back, and I'm walking around just, because I'm the custodian, so I'm grabbing the trash cans and like, oh, you excited for all this extra work? I'm coming back. I'm like, I just want to be normal. Just normal, please.
Exactly.
I'll take all of you guys coming back and filling up my trash bins. Exactly. I don't care.
Yeah. Well, and you're probably going to feel the same kind of thing we've been feeling at the city for the last month or so, which is this new wave of energy and excitement and all of the things, the plans and the projects that people have been thinking about for the last 16 months. They're going, oh, now's the opportunity to do it,
right?
Which is great. I absolutely love that, but it's going to be a real challenge to figure out where we have the capacity to do all of these things and to do kind of the triage of all of the stuff of what do we attack first, because for the last 18 months we've been keeping the doors open, or the lights on.
Right.
One of the things that I said early on in the pandemic is City of Holland does not close, because in those very first days, I remember talking to my wife, and she said, I think the grocery stores are going to close. And I said, the grocery stores won't close. And then I went out and I bought some stuff at the grocery store thinking, well, maybe the grocery store will close.
Everybody did.
Right.
That's when you couldn't find toilet paper and everything.
Exactly. And people had legitimate concerns that maybe the electricity wouldn't work. Maybe the water wouldn't work. It was early March. It was still cold out. Was the heat going to still work? And so some of the first messages I had to put out as mayor were, hey, don't worry, those basic services will continue. We'll make sure your lights stay on. We'll make sure your water's there. We'll make sure if you call 911, the police and the fire department will show up.
Right.
And so we got those basics. But then once we kind of got over those first few weeks, we said we still have a lot of projects in the works that we need to continue. And so we continued to do that work even with limited staff and limited resources to be able to do that, and a whole lot of uncertainty about what the future held. We didn't know whether we were going to have revenue coming in, right?
Yeah.
And so we kept things going. We kept a lot of things moving forward. And now that we're coming out of it, it's that question of, okay, what do we bring back of the things that we had to put aside for a while? And then what are all these great new opportunities that we have moving forward? And how's the world going to look different? Because we're not going back to the way things looked in 2019. The whole world's different than it was before. And I'm hopeful in a lot of great ways.
So how tough of a call was it to cancel the tulip time parades and stuff this year?
I want to make a clarifying point there. I didn't cancel.
I didn't say you. I said, how tough of a call was it?
It was a terribly difficult call. It really was. I don't know if you know, I was the chair of the Tulip Time Festival about 5 years ago.
Okay.
I was on the board for 6 years. I've been a Tulip Time tour guide for almost 30 years. And so I've been heavily involved in the festival since I was in college.
And I would assume that, the mayor of the town is going to have some sort of say or influence in it. One vote.
Nope, not even a vote in it.
So where did that come down
some
from?
Input. It's the Tulip Time Board. Tulip Time's run by a separate nonprofit organization called Tulip Time Festival Incorporated. And their executive director is Gwen Auerta, who happens to be a good friend. I know most of the members on the board because I served with a lot of them. I haven't been off the board for that long. And I remember having conversations with Gwen already in February and early March as we saw this coming, going, what are we going to do? And we actually, I think it was early March, I was sitting in a meeting with her, and she and I stood and talked for about an hour after the meeting and saying, when if the plug is going to get pulled, when should the plug get pulled?
Right.
And one thing that people don't understand about Tulip Time is they have an awful lot of expenses before the festival, and literally none of the revenues come in yet.
Right.
So they make all of their plans and pay for all of the upfront costs out of the revenue that they made for the previous year.
The previous year, right.
And so we had conversations about at what point is it going to cost a whole lot more money to make the next step, and when do you know? And when that came, she actually stopped by my office in City Hall and said, "This is what we're planning on doing." And I had kind of a deep sigh and like, I can't believe that this is going to happen, because frankly, I'm a Tulip Time guy.
Right.
I love it. I was very excited about being the mayor of Holland during Tulip Time.
Exactly.
I've been the board chair.
Right.
I've been dressed in Dutch costume.
Me too.
My wife-
yeah. When I was little, we even marched in the parade. you
Yeah.
know?
Oh, yeah. I was a parade announcer. My wife's a Dutch dancer. My daughter's a Dutch dancer. My mom was a Dutch dancer. And to be the mayor, the literally the first time since World War II that the festival's been canceled, to go, oh, okay. And so they canceled. And then the question was, well, the tulips are still coming. What are we going to do about that? And the festival was canceled, I think probably in March is when they made that decision. Mm-hmm. Well, we had all of April where we were saying what's going to happen. And every day we would talk about it at City Hall. At the time, I was putting out videos twice a week, mayor informal videos.
Yep.
And we kept saying, when's the one going to be about the tulips? What are we going to say about the tulips? And we said, we got to hold off. Let's hold off as long as we can with this. And we were hearing stories of other tulip festivals in other parts of the world, and there are other festivals in other parts of the world that were canceling. There are lots of them in Japan, lots of them in South Korea.
Revolved
They're in
around
Turkey,
tulips?
all around tulips. The Tulip Time Festival in Holland actually belongs to an organization called the World Tulip Summit Society, which is an international organization. I know I didn't know it existed before 2015. It started by the head of the Canadian Tulip Festival, a guy who's now become a friend of mine, Michel Gauthier. I was invited to go. Well, Tulip Time was invited. I just happened to be the one that was able to go and travel to South Korea in 2015 to go to the World Tulip Summit.
Wow.
And
crazy.
we met with tulip organizations, tulip festivals from around the world. I got to meet Michelle. I'm friends now with the guy who used to be the head of all of the flowers at Disneyland Paris. I know the head of the Bouchard Gardens. I know the head of person who puts on Floriade in Australia. I know people from Italy, from Turkey, all around the world came for this one festival. Well, since we've got these connections, we're all communicating with one another as well. And there was actually a mayor of a city in Japan that has a tulip festival who went out with a weed whipper. And he cut down all of the tulips because their concern was the tulips were going to attract people to the community. And during a pandemic, the last thing you want are people coming into your community.
But you can't do that to tulips, right?
I was certainly not going to be the first mayor in the history of Holland, Michigan that was going to cut down the tulips. I said, no way, we can't do that at all.
No.
And I found myself praying for bad weather, for hail, warm, please God.
Everything you normally don't hope for.
Right, exactly. Because it's always a gamble whether they're going to be tulips during the Tulip Time Festival at all. You probably remember 2012 when we had the STEM Fest where we had great, beautiful weather in March. And the tulips came in April, and there were none by May. And we kept saying, well, maybe that'll happen. Maybe they'll be bad this year. They weren't. They were spectacular. They were absolutely beautiful. And so we figured there was still a travel ban in place. So you weren't supposed to travel to other cities. You're supposed to stay in your own community still in early May of 2020. Mm-hmm. And we said, we got to put some message out there that we just don't want people to come to the city. It's just not safe for people to travel here.
It's hard to say that, too.
Oh, it's terribly hard to say that. But you got to remember also at the time, restaurants were not open, not even for takeout.
Right.
You could do. I think you could do takeout only, but you couldn't go into the restaurants. All of the retail stores were closed. There were no public restroom facilities available. So if you drove here from Detroit or Chicago, where are you going to eat? There's no place to eat. Where are you going to use the bathroom? No place to use the bathroom. And so we were sitting talking as we did with all of the mayoral message videos, sitting with the city manager and the assistant city manager trying to figure out what the message was going to be. And the city manager had actually been talking to his wife, and his wife said, if you're sick or somebody in your household's sick, you don't invite people over. You just say, hey, we'd love to have you over to the house, but this is probably not the best time to do that. And that became kind of the basis of the message of, we'd love to have you here, but this really isn't a good time for you to
it's just
come.
really not.
Yeah, I'd rather not invite you into my home if I'm sick, and I'd certainly rather not invite you into my home if you're sick. And so that was the message that we put out there. And as with all of the videos, there were I wrote the scripts for every single one of them, but we would do multiple variations and try to reword things. And the one that I ended up loading up into the teleprompter, and for those people who want to know, yes, I use a teleprompter with those. It's hard to do a 5-minute video word for word.
I can't even remember lyrics to a song all the way through.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Yeah, and when you want to make sure that you say the message the right way,
Right.
I actually loaded the wrong version into the teleprompter.
Oh, no.
And it was the version that left out the one line that said, hey, if you're from the Holland area, certainly come and see the tulips. And we didn't realize it until it had been posted and it had already been seen thousands of times. And we went, oh, no. And that was one of the negative reactions that we got from it is, well, I live in Zealand. Can I come and see the tulips? And we're like, yeah, of course you can. I live in Hudsonville. Can I come? Well, of course you can. What we didn't want is we didn't want people from traveling from across the state or out of state
Right.
to come in and to do
Hours
that.
and hours away.
Exactly.
So
we ended up with beautiful tulips, beautiful weather, and crowds of people. And during the pandemic, because they had cabin fever. They wanted to get out. And so again, the city manager, assistant city manager, and other staff people from the city, we would take turns on those Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, driving through Windmill Island, driving by Window on the Waterfront, driving through downtown, and giving each other reports on, okay, how many people do we have? Do we need to be worried about this? Do we need to start dealing with crowd control? And even though we had great crowds, the crowds were really good about social distancing. A lot of people just stayed in their cars and drove the tulip lanes, which was great. Right. And I was worried about an uptick in COVID numbers following the tulip time of 2020. Just didn't happen. We didn't get any of the economic benefit of tulip time, which was really too bad because tulip time has a huge economic impact for the city.
Huge.
But we kept people safe. We kept people healthy. We got people out and about because, again, at the time, we were encouraging people, get out into the parks, get out into the fresh air. You don't have to be sitting at home locked in your basement. You can go out, and that's great stuff.
This was back in 2020.
This was 2020. So this was well over a year ago.
This is still, though, when you're being, told to just stay inside.
Yeah, well, the message was,
why can't we go outside?
Yeah, well, we were, and I actually put out a couple of videos on get out into the parks, do those kinds of things, as long, again, as you're social distancing. We did end up at the city, have to end up taking the basketball hoops off the backboards in the city parks. We had to take the nets down on the pickleball courts and the tennis courts because you'd get a group of people playing basketball together, bumping into one another, and two things happen. One is that creates the potential for spreading COVID. The other thing that it did that I think a lot of people didn't realize is it generated 911 calls. And so people would see people playing basketball.
And they were calling on them.
And they would call 911. And so then our first responders would have to respond. And that actually put our first responders at risk.
Oh, yeah.
Because our first responders would have to go and then engage with people and potentially pick up COVID as well. And the last thing that we wanted or needed was to have a big chunk of our first responders get COVID and not be able to work.
And also just going out for these calls for these kids playing basketball. This,
Yeah. So we ended up having to say, please, people, just, if you want to go shoot baskets, do that. If you want, with your own family unit, do that.
Yeah, I remember that too.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah. So if if it's people you're seeing all the time anyway, no problem. But don't get together with groups, and people still did. So we ended up having to take the ability for them to do that away for a while, which again was no fun to do. It's no fun to put a message out that says, "I'm really sorry, but you can't play basketball."
Yeah, I was like, what is going on?
Yeah, and a lot of it was based on the information we had at the time. Our constant theme throughout it was we are making the best decisions that we can based on the information that we have available to us at the moment. And it literally changed day by day, hour by hour in terms of what the rules were, what we thought was safe to do, what we didn't think was safe to do.
Now, was there even an option for you to go an alternate route?
No. No, the city is an arm of the state government.
The state government.
We get all of our power, all of our authority from the state government. So whatever the state government tells us to do,
Then you have to
we
do.
have to do, because they have the ability to pull our charter. And so there's no question if something
how
comes
would
down from
they-
the state, we have to do it.
So how would they be basing if you weren't following protocol off of the numbers? Just the number of cases?
No, it had more to do with whatever restrictions we had in place at the time. So
So they would just kind of look at what your restrictions are. If they're following with their protocol, that's okay. So like when you brought up the example of the basketball hoops having to come down, was that something that you guys just seen other places were doing and you decided we should do this? That wasn't something the state
No,
said.
state
The state didn't say you have to take basketball hoops
no,
down.
they didn't. That was a decision that was made actually. It's interestingly the way the city government works. It's not a decision the mayor would make. It's a decision that the city manager would make. And so maybe this is probably a good point to explain kind of how the structure of the city government works.
Please.
So we are what is called I refer to it as weak mayor council form of government. City manager likes to refer to it as a manager council form because he doesn't like it when I keep saying weak mayor. But we have a 9-member city council. The mayor is one member of that city council and one vote on city council. The 9-member city council is made up of representatives for the 6 wards in the city, so 6 different geographical areas within the city. So there's 6 of them that do that, and then there are 3 of us that are at large, 2 at-large city council members and the mayor's at large. City council members are elected for 4-year terms. Mayor's elected for a 2-year term, and so and every 2 years, half the city council is up for election, and the mayor's always up for re-election.
Why?
Makes me very accountable to the public. I don't have the ability to be able to say, well, I don't have to worry about getting elected now for 4 years.
So when you say at large, what does that mean?
At large means you represent the entire city.
So your vote represents the entire city.
My vote represents the entire city. Mike Trethewey, who is the mayor pro tem, represents the first ward, which is Holland Heights.
Yep.
We're sitting right now. The lines are kind of funny around this neighborhood. We're probably sitting in the 3rd ward right now. If you know who your council member is, I'd be able to tell you. But Raul Garcia is the city council member for the 3rd ward. 4th ward, which is out where I live, out near like Christ Memorial Church, South Shore Drive area.
Yeah.
Is the 4th ward. 2nd ward is downtown area, for instance.
Okay.
5th ward is south side of Holland. So each of those council members represent that smaller section of town, and so they've got more of a focus and more of an emphasis. They make decisions for the whole city as well, but it provides the people that live in that area some direct point of contact on city council.
So what would be like something that you could bring to a your
Your council member?
yeah.
So
What would be like a concern that you could bring to them instead
that-
of going up the chain? This is something that they could handle.
We get it all the time from folks. It may be a general thing that a lot of people in the city have, like, people have concerns about the new recycling containers. Well, everybody in the city got a new recycling container. Or you might have, hey, I got a park in my neighborhood and I'd like different playground equipment, or I'd like the playground equipment in my park to be updated. Well, that park serves the whole city, but really also serves that particular neighborhood.
Right.
So you're more likely to talk to your particular council member, or
So neighborhood type.
neighborhood things.
Either concerns or suggestions or complaints or anything like
Yeah.
that in
Yeah.
your neighborhood.
Right. We
could
had
kinda-
a lot of them. My office is out in Central Park off South Shore Drive. Well, a lot of the houses that are on the waterfront, when we had the high water levels, they were concerned about the road ends and the flooding that was taking place. Nikki Aronshorst is the 4th Ward council member. She got a whole lot more calls about those kinds of things than I did as the mayor, because those folks said, well, Nikki is my council member, so I'm going to talk to her about that in particular.
I think more people really need to know that, because like you said, I don't really know who my council member is.
It's a good thing to know, because they are very accountable to the people that live in their ward. And so with the ward map, the lines run right through this area within a block or two of this.
It's similar to like when you go vote and it's set up in like you have to vote for your. I thought it said precinct or something on there.
Well, the
Are
precincts
those
are
the
for
same-
voting.
Yeah.
Similar but different. It's the
they still
similar
they
concept.
it's still not the same
Lines are not all
areas.
the same. No,
What?
no,
Why not? Why
oh,
not?
they're
You already
great-
got wards.
There are great political reasons for all
Oh
of that.
yeah.
but
What's that?
It's similar. Well, it's similar to you have your own particular member of Congress. So, so Bill Huizenga would be the member of Congress that represents this portion of town, all the way up to Ludington. But at right about 32nd, 40th Street to the south is Fred Upton's district and runs all the way to the. So Holland sits kind of on the line between those two. So City of Holland could say, we have two different members of Congress that represent this city. Well, you and I can only vote for Bill Huizenga or the person in that congressional district.
Yeah.
I can't vote for the person who's running in Fred Upton's district. So those lines change over time depending on how population changes.
Yeah, I can see that.
And so there are different things, and it does get complicated really quickly and confusing really quickly. And knowing who it is that represents you at the local level, who represents you at the state level, and who represents you at the national level. Not to mention who you vote for school board and who you vote for at the county level, and all of those kinds of things can be really complicated for somebody to keep track of.
Right.
Which is also a reason why, as mayor, I get more communication in general than most council members do, because people will say, "Well, I don't know who my council member is, but I know who the mayor is."
Right.
So
Exactly.
I know the mayor represents me because he represents the whole city. So I'll get a lot of those calls. So there are 9 of us. I'm one vote of the 9. I have a few additional responsibilities and a little bit additional power that other members of council don't have. So I literally sign with a pen almost every contract that the city enters. So every time I show up at City Hall, I refer to having my homework to do, which is I've got to look and review the city council, the contracts that luckily have been reviewed by the city attorney and staff ahead of time, and have to sign all of those. I get to make recommendations for appointments to every single board, committee, and commission in the city. So things like the library board and the zoning board, and there are 28 different ones that all have different members on them. I get to make the recommendations for those. Council has to approve them, but they almost always do. So that's an additional power that I have to there. We also have I get paid more than the city council members do. City council members make a little more than $6,000 a year for being a city council member. Mayor Pro Tem, who stands in if I'm out of town, Mike Trethewey, gets about $9,000 a year. I get about $12,000 a year.
Right.
So it's not big money that
No.
we're talking about for this
Yeah.
job. None of us are doing it for that.
Right.
It comes out to a few bucks an hour, frankly, in what we're getting paid for that. But we then, as council members, we set policy for the city. So we pass all of the ordinances. We make all of the big policy decisions. We have one employee, and that's the city manager.
City manager.
So the city manager is the only employee that the city council has. Every other employee for the city of Holland, every other person that works for the city of Holland works for the city manager. So if I see a police officer on the street and I want them to do something, as mayor, I don't have any authority to tell them to do anything.
Right.
If I see a parks worker, I don't have any authority to tell them to do anything, nor should I, because they don't work for me.
Right.
They work for the city. They work for the city manager. If I have an issue, I talk to the city manager. The city manager then deals with it. And we're lucky. We've got a great city manager.
Yeah.
So this all stemmed from who decided to close the tennis courts? Who decided to take the city manager essentially did. So he talks to his staff at the Park and Recreation Department, the chief of police, the fire department. What are all of the different issues that go into this? But ultimately, that's a decision that the city manager makes because he is responsible for all of the city facilities. When City Hall closed to the public, the mayor and the council didn't make that decision. We had some input on it, but ultimately the city manager did because that's his responsibility. When it opened back up this past week, he was the one who made that decision. He and I had talked about it beforehand about what he was thinking about doing, but ultimately that's his decision to do.
So he can't. There is no veto. There's nothing that he makes that decision, and
Yes.
no matter if even all of you are saying no,
Right.
he could still say
say, I'm going to do
I'm
this.
going to do this.
I'm going to do this. And the only way we can deal with that is we can fire him, if we want to. We could reprimand him if we wanted to. But ultimately, that's his responsibility and that's his full-time job. He works 24/7. That's his job as city manager to make sure that all of those things are running, and ultimately the buck stops with him. And one of the things, I'm a government guy, so one of the things that I've been very aware of and trying to communicate to people in the community is that relationship. Is that I don't run the city the way other mayors of cities do, because there are different forms of it where the mayor is essentially the city manager as well.
Just going to say that. So in other cities, every city has a different style of way how their mayor goes about their city. So you have to really learn your city.
Exactly.
You can't just take mayor does this in my city, so every other mayor should be able to do that.
Right, exactly. So mayor of New York City, for instance, is more of a city manager type.
Right.
Pete Buttigieg in South Bend, Indiana, full-time job. He was more mayor and city manager. And so it's a big difference. I'm more of a legislator. I'm more in the congressional branch almost in terms of the three branches of government than the executive branch, which Bill de Blasio or Pete Buttigieg would be. And that really frustrates people sometimes as well. They're like, well, why can't you do that? And I'm like, well, that's not within my authority to do
me,
that.
it seems like your vote should have like a little more leverage because it's for the people too.
It is equal to every other vote on city council.
Well, you have extra responsibilities. You represent the town.
Yep.
So you are how many residents are in Holland?
33,500.
Bam.
Yep.
You are 33,501 people.
Yep. I have 33,500 bosses.
Vote.
Yeah. And I'm one.
Does that make sense to you?
It does. Actually, it does because, again, Lynn Raymond is a council member at large. Quincy Byrd is a council member at large. So they each represent all of those same people as well. And
so all three at larges represent the people.
Right. Represent the people as a whole.
And do you guys tend to come together on your decisions?
No. There's a broad spectrum of viewpoints on council. We're all nonpartisan, so none of us have any political party affiliation whatsoever. We all have our own viewpoints. We all have our own life experience and our ideas that we bring to the table. And there's a real wide spectrum of that on council right now, which is great. I think it's wonderful because we come to better decisions. But by being nonpartisan, we don't have to deal with all of the stuff that the parties do. We can just put all of that aside and say, what do we think is best for the city?
How do you just like put it all aside?
Well,
how do you you've come out and said that you're like a lifelong Democrat, and other people, you might know, like they're like, oh, how do you like still? It's like you can't just like. Because you got different views.
None of us has any influence from the parties, which is great.
Influence from the party. The party is saying do this, and so they're going to vote this way no matter what. That does not
exist.
You don't have like a party line. This is where we vote.
Nope, not at all. And
it's all to the person.
Right. It is to the person, and there are different. This too strong of a word. Coalition's too strong of a word. But there will be different groups. There'll be different groups within council where you'll say, on this particular issue, I think these 4 or 5 people are going to vote this way. Mm-hmm. On this particular issue, another 4 or 5 people may vote that way, but it's a completely different group than the one was before. Mm-hmm. So it really has more to do with the issue and how people view that issue than it does a party line vote.
Keep going.
Oh, I was going to say there may be people on council that are more liberal. There may be people that are on council that are more conservative.
Yeah, that's what I guess I was kind of saying. Yeah. You kind of know that. I don't know why there has to be 2 different for the same thing.
But it would be, I think it's fair to say, Mike Trethewey, the mayor pro tem, is probably one of the more conservative members of city council. Mm-hmm. He's been on council for 25 years. I think it would be fair to say I'm one of the more liberal members on council. My biggest ally and my biggest partner on most things on council is Mike Trethewey. He and I, that has been an incredible partnership that he and I have formed, because what we knew from the beginning, because Mike and I have known each other for over 20 years, is we know how each other views the world. We each respect the other one's opinion. Mm-hmm. We each value the other one's opinion. And while we may differ on policy, the one thing that we are in lockstep on is process. And we will make sure that, and we both said this, we're dedicated to making sure that whatever decision we make is made in the right way, regardless
Right.
of what the outcome is. So for us, while yes, we want the right outcome for the city, he and I and other members of council as well, but Mike and I have worked together a lot over the course of the last year and a half just because we've had to, because of COVID.
Right.
Spent a lot more time communicating than
Definitely,
we've been
yeah.
able to with other council members.
Strategizing and everything.
That we've said, hey, we're going to make sure that what happens is done the right way. And one great example of that is the non-discrimination ordinance that we passed last summer. You know, the comprehensive non-discrimination ordinance. For those people who don't know, we passed last August an ordinance that said you are not allowed to discriminate against people in the area of employment, housing, or what's called public accommodations, which is restaurants, hotels, those
Yep.
kinds of things, regardless of age, race, ethnic background, height, weight, sexual orientation, sexual expression, gender expression, you name it. You cannot discriminate on any of those kinds of things.
Right.
It was a big deal in this community because about 9 years ago, a very similar ordinance had come before city council and it failed 5-4. There were only 3 members of councils that are still on council who were there 9 years ago. Mike Trethui, Dave Hoekstra, and Jay Peters. Mike's the only one still left on council who voted against it 9 years ago. He knew the handwriting was on the wall that when I was elected mayor and when Nikki Ernst-Horst and Lynn Raymond were elected on council, each one of us had said publicly during the election, if a similar ordinance came up again, we'd vote for it. Well, you could do a head count the day after the election. There were enough people on council to pass that same ordinance. And so we started having conversations early on, and Mike and I had conversations, and I said, we know it's coming up, Mike. And I said, I know the votes are there. We could ram this thing through the second
Right.
week of November if we wanted to, but I don't want to do it that way. I want to bring the community along with us in this process. And Mike, I want to bring you along in the community. And I remember he said to me during one council meeting, we kind of leaned over to me and he said, yeah, did you see the article in the paper yesterday about the non-discrimination ordinance? He goes, why every single time that they publish one of these articles that they mention, I'm the only guy left on council that didn't vote for it last time. And I'd look at him kind of slyly and go, well, Mike, we can change that.
Yeah.
And we had a conversation about it. And in December, we had over 300 people show up at a city council meeting asking us to bring the ordinance back up for a vote. And Mike and I talked after the meeting, and we said, we know we're going to have our priority setting thing in January. We can talk about it then and bring it forward. And he said, well, why don't we take it off the table for January? Why don't we do something, start the process now? And so Mike, one of the most conservative members of council, the only guy who voted against it last time, was the one who proposed bringing it back to the table again. And that's a really good example of us being nonpartisan,
Right.
of us saying, you know what, we're willing to talk about these things. And Mike said at that time, he goes, I'm not saying I'm going to vote for it. I'm not saying I'm going to support it, but I'm willing to put it back out there again. And that sent a really strong message to the community that this is a council that's willing to talk with one another. This is a council that's willing to work together. This is a council that's willing to compromise. None of us are, it's my way or the highway.
Right.
We're all smart people. We've all been elected by the community, by either a subset of the community, by 1/6, by 5,000 some people, or by 33,000 people. We all represent those viewpoints. Let's get together and figure out the best way to be able to do this. And after going from starting in December, we were paused a little bit by COVID. The vote finally came down in August after a marathon city council meeting. We'd had multiple meetings up to that point, but the last one started at 6:30 p.m., ended at 2:30 a.m.,
Oh, wow.
and it passed 8-1, including Mike Trethui's vote. So the only vote against it was Quincy Byrd, and I think that if we'd had another hour or so in us, we probably could have gotten Quincy across the line as well, because we'd gotten to a point with language, and we'd gotten to a point with understanding.
Yeah, what was his issue the first time around
There were
with it?
there
Was
were
it
some there were protections. He actually was going to make a motion to amend it to allow some additional protection for religious organizations right at the end. And actually, it's one of the great lines the city council or the city manager has ever made. He leans into the microphone, he looks at Quincy, and he goes, "It's 1:30 in the morning, Quincy. Like, please don't go down this road," because where we would have ended up from a procedural standpoint is, in order to be able to actually make that amendment to the ordinance, we would have had to have sent it back to the city attorney to make sure that the language that we had was legal. We weren't sure whether legally we were able to do that thing. And you go, well, what's the big deal with that? Well, every city council meeting, whether it's a study session or a regular meeting, allows for a period of public comment. And any member of the public that wants to come to a regular meeting can speak on any subject they want to for 5 minutes. At a study session, they can do it for 3 minutes. One of the main reasons.
So any of the 9, you're saying, right?
No.
Oh, what did you say?
If you want to come to a city
Okay,
council meeting,
you got 5 minutes.
you got 5 minutes to talk about anything you want.
Okay, city council meeting. Okay,
City council
yep.
meeting. So any member of the public can come. All we ask of you is we ask for your name and your address so that we know who you are, and actually so
Can
we
egg the house afterwards if you're mean.
Hopefully not, but yeah. No, it's really what I'm keeping track of when I'm looking at is, where do they live? Are they are they in the city or not? Because
Right.
yes, I care more. If you live in the city, you're somebody that I represent directly.
How many out of towners do you get coming to a city
we
council?
get a lot of people from the north side of Holland, which is not in the city.
Okay.
We get
Where
a lot
would
of
they
people
have
from
to go?
Zealand. They can go to their township board or their county
township
board. Yeah.
boards.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you live
Yeah.
in a city or you live in a township.
Right. So that you would go there.
Right. So they
They're
can go
coming
talk to their
here.
township board, but there are a lot of people, if they have a Holland address, think that they live in Holland or believe that they
Right.
live in Holland or feel a connection in Holland. We have a lot of people say, "Well, I don't live in the city, but I'm in the city a lot. I shop in the city. I feel like I'm connected to the city," which is great.
Right,
I think
yes.
that's a wonderful thing. But there's
Suggestions are welcome.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
We'd love to hear from you, and if
But
you've
you
got
don't
great
live here.
suggestions, and you can't vote for me, or vote against
vote
me.
for me?
I don't directly represent you.
Right.
I have a stronger allegiance, and I think I should, to the people who actually live in the city. I work
So
for
you-
them. You guys pay my salary.
Right.
People who live in the north side don't pay my salary.
Yeah.
If they've got a good idea that I think is going to be beneficial for the people
Right.
of the city of Holland, of course I'm going to listen to that.
Yeah, we'll
Of
take
course.
your ideas.
Yeah, exactly. So, and the other thing we always try to make clear to folks during that public comment period is it's not a discussion time.
Yeah.
We don't answer questions. It's Robert's Rules of Order. It's not.
So is it kind of like you just listen to what they have to say and then you pick out the nuggets? Like,
Yes.
'cause
Yeah,
okay, this was.
you always listen intently.
Are they recorded?
It's all recorded.
So you can listen back.
We can go listen back. In
How
the regular,
often do you listen back?
Not all the time, but I did with a lot of the non-discrimination ordinance ones. I did go back.
You had 300 people show up. 300 people got 5 minutes.
We had 300 people show up in December.
Right.
And then between December and August, we would have people at almost every single meeting, if not every single meeting. And it would be anywhere from a half a dozen people up to that final meeting. The reason why it went from 6:30 p.m. to 2:30 in the
Because
morning.
everybody had 5 minutes.
Everybody had 5 minutes. I think I'd have to go back and look.
Mm.
I think there were 4 or 5 hours of public comment.
Wow, there wasn't
People
a time
lined
in
up.
there where they were just like, okay, let's just pass it.
No, and all of that public comment.
Like the
takes-
guy
yeah.
who said 1:30, the city manager. You say
Yeah, he's 1:30 in the morning.
1:30 in the morning.
Yeah, we as council had been discussing it for a couple of hours at that point after the public comment period.
Yeah,
So the public,
right.
it is you line up and you come up to the microphone and you say your piece, and then the next person comes up,
Is this thing on?
yeah, and says their piece, and the only restrictions are you speak to council, so you're not you are talking to us or you're communicating to us, not to the members of the
You're
audience.
not looking back, like
Not looking
Yeah.
back, you're not engaging with other people. We have very strict rules, and Mike is also our chief governance officer. She's like the sergeant at arms, and Mike's great about this as well. Is we've been dedicated as city council to civil discourse. We speak to each other respectfully. We speak to the members of the public respectfully. We expect the people that come to our meetings to speak respectfully to each other and to us. And we don't put up with it any other way. You can get angry with us, but don't yell at us. No profanity, no arguing. We won't put up with any of that at all because it's not productive.
Right.
But you may come and tell me that you think I'm a horrible person and making the wrong decision, and believe me, I've heard it. And
you just got to sit there and just
you do you sit.
There's no
you
rebuttal.
Listen,
you guys
no
never
rebuttal.
rebutted anything.
No, the only time there's ever been any kind of rebuttal or engagement back is if somebody's not following the rules.
Yeah.
Every now and then,
So other than that, you guys just sit up like a stiff board.
you sit and you listen to it, and you got to be you're always respectful because these are the people
You
that
just say
these are people
thank
that you
you
represent.
for your comments.
I'm very careful about saying the same thing at the beginning of every comment, at the end of every comment, and that is, would you please state your name and address for the record, and then you listen, and then at the end you say thank you very much, and you move on, and I try very hard.
And they walk away like,
did he? I'm always.
did they get it? I don't know.
I listen.
I'll never
I
know.
listen to every comment. I take every comment in. I will often make notes of what they're saying. I know we can go back as well, but I do want people to know we are listening. We are paying attention. We are gathering that information, and it does inform our decisions. Just because we're not answering questions, that frustrates people sometimes.
Oh yeah, I can
they'll
imagine.
ask a direct question, and we'll just look at them.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like,
Yeah, and I do make a little speech at the beginning of it where I try to remind people we don't answer questions now. We're not going to engage in discussion now.
yeah, we'll be here till 2:30 every night.
Yeah,
every
exactly.
morning.
and we have an agenda to follow. And remember, the people that are here to talk can talk on anything they want to. It doesn't have to be anything that's on the agenda. And so we're certainly not going to let our meetings get derailed by somebody who wants to talk about something else. They've got their 5 minutes. That's fine. We also, during COVID, instituted an email address for people who didn't want to come to the meetings or didn't feel safe coming to the meetings, or when we were doing our meetings by Zoom.
Who took over those emails?
They all come to City Council, and we read every single one of them.
Read every single one.
It is public comment at cityofholland.com. So if you want to send an email that every member of City Council will see, they will be made a part of the public record. So we don't read them out loud at the meeting, but we take them in, and they're part of the packet, and they're available on the website. So if you send an email, you may want to think twice about what you're writing, because we're all going to see it, and anybody else in the public can see it as well.
What's the most hilarious one you've had? Has there been one that's been pretty funny?
We get some interesting ones. We get some we get people who are very
What's the
angry,
most
very
interesting
upset.
one? There's got to be one that sticks out. I mean, if it's public, everybody can see it.
Well,
so.
I'll let the public decide on those. I've had some people use some choice words in regard to me and other council members, which is, again, people get really passionate about their community, which again I think is a great thing.
But I don't think a lot of people do.
I
think they're passionate, but they don't understand it.
Oh, most
like this is
going
to be. I think this has already been like very informative.
Yeah.
Like if people listen, to this, they're going to be like, okay, that's how it goes down.
Yeah,
you might really like the town you live in. You're like, I like this and that, but you don't understand how it works.
No, and most people are just trying to get through the day, the week, the month, and the year.
Oh yeah,
they don't have time. Yeah, you got to pay the bills. You got to get the kids fed. You got to get them to bed. You got to go to work. You got to do your stuff.
You got to have a little bit of me time.
Right. Yeah, and you don't have time to show up on a Wednesday night. And we're at City Hall every Wednesday night. I was there till we got out early last night. We got out about 8:00 last night.
Oh. Not a big crowd.
No, it was nice. There were only a couple of members of the public that showed up, and not that I don't like the members of the public showing up, but we got a lot done. Some nights it's kind of nice.
Right.
Some nights it's nice to just sit with the council and be able to talk and get things done. And this year has been an incredibly busy year for people coming to our meetings because of Zoom. We had to hold our meetings online for months, and it's a whole lot easier. We thought, oh, nobody's going to show up. We had meetings where there were hundreds of people online watching what was going on.
Right.
And again, if they want their 5 minutes, they can have their 5 minutes. We had the Planning Commission, which is doing, you've probably seen the no to rezoning signs. We're doing a whole rewriting of the city zoning ordinance. Nothing more exciting to people than a rewriting of the zoning and the planning ordinance for their city. Most people, their eyes glaze over immediately when I say that.
No.
But we had, at one of our meetings, we had 144 people show up
For the
online for zoning. Why? Well, it can be an important issue. Most people don't care about zoning, but one of the things that the pandemic has allowed is for people to log on to the meeting and stay at home and do their thing.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of fun to watch.
Is that something you're going to keep going?
No, we're not. We're not. No, we're not. We're actually
now
not
that
allowed
it's in
to.
person.
We're not. It's one of the state rules. We're not allowed to now.
Oh, why?
Why
is that a state rule?
State law requires that the meetings have to be held in public, and they have to be held in person.
Because something could be altered or something
exactly.
online.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of old-fashioned reasons for that.
Yeah,
but
no, I prefer old-fashioned and going in person too. In person is much. If we were doing a Zoom right now,
it wouldn't be the same.
no,
it's
not
not
at
the
all.
same. It's
Not at all.
No.
You're just like it's crap audio the whole time. You're like, yeah, what did you say?
Yeah. We've all done our fair share of Zoom meetings, and as somebody who has to participate in a lot of public meetings, it's not nearly the same way that it was before. But it was not legal prior to COVID to hold a public meeting like that by Zoom. They had the state legislature had to pass an emergency order to allow it. And over the last several weeks or month or so, we've been waiting for those orders either to run out or for them to change to allow us to go back in person. Because for a while we weren't allowed to meet on Zoom. Then we weren't allowed to meet in person. Then we were allowed to do one or the other depending on whether we had the facilities available. So some we did in Zoom, some we did in person. And now we're back into you have to meet in person.
Yeah.
And so we're back to doing all of our meetings in person again,
And
which
we
I
got
really
a light
like.
crowd.
We do. Well, and we still social distancing rules are still in place.
Right.
You still have to keep 6 feet of social distance. So, where we did in December have 300 people in the city council meeting. In August, during COVID, we could only get 24 people in there. And so people had to wait in line. And they waited in line and they sat out in the parking lot. And so we had to make accommodations. We broadcast the meeting on YouTube live. We had speakers out in the parking lot. We had they've now got, I think, a big monitor out in the parking lot, so you can actually watch the meeting going on as well.
Oh wow, that's
and
cool.
we had hundreds of people waiting in the parking lot, waiting in line for hours to come speak at the public comment period. And that's just kind of the way this year has
just
been.
imagine if like half the residents in Holland was like, yeah, we're getting on this stuff. Then what? What happened? You get like 1,000 people showing up. They're like, yeah, I want my 5 minutes.
Yeah.
What happens?
Yeah. And
You got to cut it off at some point.
Nope.
No,
Legally,
you're there like
legally,
24 hours.
We're there.
Just listening.
I'm a firm believer in public engagement and listening.
Yeah,
listening to the
when
people.
you're rested and ready to listen.
I think during those it was I think 4 hours of public comment. I think we took one break. Our rule is when we've got big groups like that and during COVID is everybody who's outside gets to speak before anybody who's inside. And just in case there's a bad weather thing, and we would because people would come and get to the meeting really early. Oh, I've got a seat. I get to sit inside.
I get to get in, get my 5 minutes, and
get
out.
Get out of here. And we said no. We said, guess what? You're here. You've got a seat. We don't want, because we didn't want cross-contamination of chairs and those kinds of things.
Did you have anybody walk back outside and be like, all right, I'm going outside?
we most of the people by the time they made it there were pretty dedicated to it. And I think it takes a certain amount of dedication to show up in person to the meeting.
Yeah, it does.
Much more so than just dialing in on a Zoom meeting. So
sure.
I'm going to be really curious over the next year how much of that level of participation,
because you haven't had much of that because of COVID.
Yeah. Well, and I told you I went to almost every city council meeting for a couple of years.
But being the person up there this time,
Yeah. Well, but I was.
But for the city council meetings, yeah.
Yes, I would go as a member of the audience,
Right.
partly because I was the chair of the Civic Center board, and when we were redoing the Civic Center, I was there with every meeting that was on the agenda, and it was a lot of meetings. And then when I decided to run for mayor, a full year before the election, I said
like,
to
I'm gonna do
myself,
this.
if
Okay.
I'm going to do this, I'm going to be committed to it, and I'm going to make sure I know what's going on. So if I win, I've got an idea of, I'm not coming in cold.
Exactly.
So I was going to go to every single city council meeting. Well, for weeks on end, I'm the only guy sitting in the audience.
Really?
I'm the only one who's not an elected official or a staff
And
member.
then you get to listen in on what they're discussing.
Oh yeah.
Okay,
Oh yeah.
yeah. So,
But what that showed me is people weren't showing up for meetings. I mean, it got after a couple of weeks, people looked at me and said, "So what? Are you going to run for office or what? Because you're here. Why are you here?"
Did they
Oh, yeah.
really?
Oh,
What
yeah.
did you say?
I said, you
I don't know.
you never know. I just
Maybe.
kind of like to, thinking about it because I did start doing it before I actually made the official
Right.
announcement, and people started to suspect a little bit about it. But
you gonna run or something?
yeah, but when you're the only guy in the audience at
Yeah.
9:30 on a Wednesday night, people are
They're like,
but now we regularly have people
What is
that
this
are
guy, a lawyer or something?
yeah. And I'd been involved enough and had been on enough boards and commissions and stuff. People knew who I was.
Right.
So and I'd been the chair of the Civic Center Place Board when the Civic Center was
Yeah,
redone.
they had,
So I had spoken to council many, many times, both formally and informally, about the stuff that was going on. So they knew exactly who I was.
Mm-hmm.
And I had actually, it was probably 8 years ago now, threw my hat into the ring for an open city council seat, the one that Quincy Byrd holds right now. That seat came open when Nancy DeBoer was elected mayor because she was in the middle of her council term. And when it's open like that in the middle of a term, city council picks who that person is who's going to fill that seat for the remainder of the term. And
Right.
so people already knew that I had some ambition potentially to be on city council. And so it wasn't a big surprise to people that I was looking to run for mayor.
So when you ran for mayor and you won, how many votes was it?
I won.
Do you remember?
I
How many votes total? Who
I used
who
to-
all came out to
I
vote?
used to know this number. It was. Here's what I can tell you because I can't remember the exact numbers anymore.
Was it in the 10,000s,
No,
20,000s?
no. There,
5,000s?
There are only 33,000 people who live in the city. Not all of them are old enough to vote.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And even
yes.
if you're old enough to vote, doesn't mean you're registered to vote.
Right.
So I think, and don't hold me to any of these numbers, anybody who's listening, I think there are about 12,000 people.
I don't know, Jesse, could you look it up? Could we find that?
It might be on the city's website.
It might
be
be.
on the city. I know that the results of the last
But you
election
think
are
it's
out there.
what?
I think it's about 12,000 people that are registered to
12,000?
vote in the city of
That is
Holland.
registered to vote.
Registered to vote, who can vote. Now remember, this is an off-year election,
Right.
which means it's an
nothing else
odd
on
year.
it.
There's nothing. There's not a congressional race. There's
Yep.
not a presidential race. So
Yep.
almost nobody shows up. I think there were. I think I won by 451 votes.
451.
Was the difference between the two, which was I think about 7 percentage points, something like
So
that.
how many is that total, though? Like, how many people came to vote?
5,000?
5,000?
4,000, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's what I was trying to
I think
gauge,
I
like how
think I
many
had
people
about
are actually coming out.
I think I had about 25% of the registered voters vote for me. But again, don't hold me to any of those numbers. I should have looked them up, but it's been
No,
it's
that's-
been 2 years. I haven't paid that much. I haven't
Who the heck
thought
knows
about
if
it that
that's even
much.
going to come up? I was just like,
Yeah.
over
No, but it
here.
was the
Couldn't find it. Okay.
there are but there have historically been two different kinds of elections, mayoral elections in the city of Holland. Blowouts or nobody running against, running unopposed, which is what I'm going to be doing this year, or ones that are really very close.
Yeah.
Phil Tanis back in the late 80s won. He was 23 years old. He was the youngest mayor in the
Wow,
country.
23.
He had been on Holland City Council since he was 18. Great, local kid, smart guy. Then went to Hope College. Was on City Council when he was at Hope College. Ran for mayor, won by 7 votes.
Wow.
It was a 7-vote difference
7 votes.
in the election prior to mine. So 2017, Nancy DeBoer versus Jay Peters. The difference was 125 votes. Nancy won by 125. I think I won by about 450, something like that, which is still relatively close. But in terms of percentage points for an election,
Yeah.
7 points is actually pretty significant amount in a challenged
No, that's a lot.
election. It was the election where more people voted in a mayoral election than ever before in the city of Holland.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. So
And that's 5,000.
that's 5,000.
About. We're not.
Here's how it was. I think I think it's closer to 8,000 people voted because I remember
5 to 8,000.
yeah, we put out when we put out yard signs, we had 400 yard signs out. We knew that our opponent had about the same number of yard signs out, and then we said, you know what, we're done putting out yard signs because there's a yard sign for every 10 voters in the city of Holland. If they haven't
Seen it.
if they haven't seen it, they're not going to be seen anymore. So that gives you an
Yeah.
idea of about how many that there are that actually show up for an election like that.
Right.
But it was a historically high turnout and a pretty significant
So
margin.
how was that doing a mayoral race when you decided, okay, I'm going to go for this. I got to run against Nancy. What am I going to do? What am I going to?
Well, I got to start with the fact Nancy and I are friends.
Yeah.
Nancy and I had been friends, had been working on projects. I wasn't running against Nancy.
Well,
I
you're
was
running against somebody.
I was running because I wanted the job.
You want the job,
I-
but you're still you have.
I sat
What
down
is
with
it?
her.
What did you say? You're unopposed. You're
I'm
opposed.
running unopposed,
But now you are opposed.
that was an opposed election.
You're opposition.
I had opposition, or she had opposition.
Yeah.
I don't have any opposition this year.
But how was that? Just like, okay,
It
what
was
do I got to do
more-
now? I got to run for mayor. I've never done this. I'm a lawyer. Like,
Yeah.
what do I do?
It was more work than I thought it was going to be. It was more
Yeah.
time consuming. I had talked to people who had run for mayor before, and I said, so what am I going to have to do here? What am I signing myself up
What's
for?
the first thing I need to do?
First thing you got to do is raise money.
Raise money.
And I said, how much money I got to raise? And previous
they're
folks
like-
had said, $4,000 to $5,000 will be a pretty good budget.
Mm-hmm.
We ended up spending $28,000. Nancy's campaign ended up
Jeez.
spending $58,000.
Wow, that's more than my yearly salary.
And well, it's for a job that pays $12,000 a year for 2 years.
Yeah.
I
Why? Holy crap.
and there was a dark money campaign out of Lansing that is
Dark money.
It is there is the ability in the campaign finance system to create a political action committee that has donors that do not have to be identified, and that political action committee, as long as they
Dude,
are,
that sounds sketchy as hell.
that's why they call it dark money.
Dark.
And they can spend an unlimited amount of money. And
Really?
the estimates are based on the amount of media that they put out there that they spent about $125,000,
Wow.
more than the two
Taking from this
actual
dark
campaigns
money?
that came out of Lansing. It was
That
money that
came
came
out
out
of
of
Lansing.
Lansing. There were lots of flyers that went out. It was almost all directed against me and for Nancy. Nancy was not involved in it at all.
So
Can't be.
you guys wouldn't be involved in this dark money. This
No, we
dark
can't
money
be.
just funnels in, and all of a sudden there's all these ads or
all these, there were internet ads. There were people were getting
Flyers
they were
in
getting
the mail.
flyers in the mail. They were getting surveys on their phones that were
and that's legal.
it's all legal, all completely
How?
above board. It's just the way the campaign finance system works.
Wow, that's weird.
And I mean, there are restrictions on what they can do. They cannot coordinate with a particular candidate, so they have to be.
But it could be
completely separate.
anybody. They don't even have to live here.
Don't even have to know who it is. The
You
only,
don't know
the only,
who it is.
the only.
Does
there's-
Lansing know who it is?
there's it was run out of a law firm in Lansing.
So it
and
was
from somebody who's so there's one person whose name was associated with it, but he's just a representative for other people. So there's no way to know exactly who it was
weird.
that funded it. And
$125,000.
it was a lot of money, and it was a lot to have to go against. Our little,
Yeah.
our little engine that could $28,000, which was 5 times what we thought we were going to end up spending in the first place. But what ended up happening, which I'm really proud of, is the people of Holland said, "Hey, we don't want somebody that we don't know from out of town trying to influence what's going on in our election." And they rejected all of that dark money propaganda that came out and said, we're not paying any attention to that. And if anything, it might have actually hurt Nancy's campaign because
I don't like the ones that are constantly up your butt and they're just like constantly demeaning. This guy's an asshole. This guy, this and that. It's like, stop, please. Oh, it was so bad with like Trump and all that
Yeah.
too, and just constantly like when they was all the people running against. It's just like stop.
And that's what people's reaction was. Our campaign was able to afford to mail out one flyer. That's all we could afford to do.
One
in the
flyer,
city.
one round of flyers.
One round of flyers. We did door knockers, so we went door to door to thousands of houses and put them on. The dark money campaign sent out 7 flyers.
7 rounds, different at different times.
Different times in the mail.
Yeah.
It was like every day,
Wow.
so people are getting a different one. And so it was this juggernaut that we were up against. But what was great is the people of Holland, and with letters to the editor started showing up, people saying, hey, Dark Money Campaign, Lansing, we don't care what you think. This is our community. We're going to vote on how this goes. And honestly, until the moment that the results came out, the official results came out on election night, we had absolutely no idea whether we were going to win or not.
Right.
And there were times in the days and weeks prior to the election day where I went, there's just no way we can win this thing.
No
So
way.
because what we're up against is so huge and so well funded. There's just no way that we can compete with that.
Yeah.
But the people of Holland said, no, we're not going to do that. We want the local elections. We want the local candidates and the people of Holland to be the ones that decide what goes on with it.
Yeah. Doesn't seem like a lot of people really liked her though. After she was gone. I didn't understand. I'm like, her name's all over town.
She's a wonderful.
She's at the bakery right down the road.
She's a different family, but she's
I know. But I didn't know that, but I'm just like, it's everywhere.
she's a wonderfully nice person. She's a good friend.
I wonder
She
if they
is
don't like that.
dedicated to the community.
The other DeBoers. I wonder if they're like, man, she's not related.
Yeah,
to us.
this is Holland, Michigan. We all have names that are all kind of connected to one another. But
Yeah,
no,
it seems-
Nancy's a great person and has been a great servant for the community.
Spend $125,000.
She did not.
Well, it's
she
still-
did not, and she was not connected to it, and can't be connected to it.
But still, though,
because that would not be legal.
$125,000 was spent. That's
Yeah.
a lot.
Somebody didn't want me to be mayor.
She
or
spent
somebody
58.
She spent 58.
And
We
then
spent
100.
28.
Whoops. And then 125 on top of the 58.
Somebody else spent the 125
Wow. So that's actually almost 200 grand that you were up against
for a
of
job
ads.
for a job that
Pays
pays
$12,000.
$12,000 a year for 2 years.
Right.
So we alone and our
But
campaign
it's
raised and
it's
spent more money
funded.
than
It's
what-
funded. You're not like taking your salary from your
We-
day job. I mean, maybe you are. I mean, I'm not going to say you're not.
I
but
contributed a lot of my own personal funds to that, just because I wanted the job.
Right.
And it's one of those things too where you get in it and you go, all right, I've already put this much in it. I gotta keep going. This is not what we expected, but let's put more in. So a significant part of that came out of my own money, and I'm a lawyer, but I'm not a rich guy by any means.
Right.
I mean, I run a one-man office.
Yeah, you're
with-
not on TV, like you said. You're
I'm not on
the
TV. I'm not
lawyer.
the TV lawyer, guys.
Did you ever want to be that guy?
No. Literally, I don't have any office staff and never have.
No,
my
it's just
my
you.
dog, it's me and my dog.
You and your dog?
And I pay for a receptionist service that answers the phone that I think they're located in maybe Oregon or something, but it's literally just me.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've heard of those.
It's Ruby Receptionist is the one I use. They're great. I love them.
Yeah.
They're so good. People think they're actually in the
was like,
office. Yeah. People come in and they're like, "Where's that person I talked to?" And I said,
She's in Oregon.
I think they're in a cubicle in Oregon." So it was a stretch, and it cost me money personally to be the mayor of Holland. One, because I put a whole lot of money into the campaign.
Mm-hmm.
Two, every minute that I spend being mayor is a minute I can't spend being a lawyer.
Being a lawyer.
And I make a whole lot more money being a lawyer than I do being mayor. But that's not the reason to do the job. The reason to do
No.
the job is because I love the community,
Right.
and I want to serve the community, and I want to make the community a better place. So it's worth it. It's for me. It's the way to be able to give back, and I'm just lucky enough. I've got the resources to be able to do it. I've got a decent enough job that I can still keep the lights on in my house, and I can send my kid to college, and and my wife puts up with it. My wife's a school teacher, so she's got all the benefits.
She's a school teacher?
Yeah.
Where does she teach?
Hudsonville High School.
Hudsonville High School?
She's just finished her 31st year
Oh, wow.
as a teacher. Yeah.
31 years as a teacher.
Yeah.
Man, there
Yeah.
we go.
Yeah.
There we go.
She teaches PE and lifeguarding, and her favorite thing is she works with the special ed kids.
Oh, PE and lifeguarding?
Yeah. So
And her
she's
favorite thing is with the special ed kids?
teach PE to the special ed kids. They're great. It's her absolute favorite thing to do.
I worked in one of the, or along with them when I was in school. It was part of school. Like I would go in there and help out. Like I would help
yeah.
set out like the projects that they were going to be doing. So they're going to be doing a science experiment. I would go help the teacher and get all the stuff ready and set up. But this room, this is where I went to high school, is in Bay City, Michigan.
Okay.
And so
Yep.
I don't know if you know where that's at.
I grew up in Mount Pleasant.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you know exactly where that
which high
is.
school did you go to?
Bay City Central.
Okay. So you were not in our league, but
No.
you were bigger than we were.
The school was huge
Yeah.
compared
Yeah.
because I went to Holland High for 2 months.
Okay.
And then, because I grew up in Holland, and then I went to live with my dad. He was over in Bay City, so I went to that school. And that school, when I went there, I was like, wow, it was like 3 floors.
Yep.
It's crazy.
Much bigger
But
than
their room was like, they had like a TV and stuff in there. They had like a couple TVs. They had like video game systems. You know, they had all this like extracurricular stuff. And I'm like, wow, this room is awesome.
Yeah.
This is cool. But it helps. It helps like they had, you know, educational games. Because when you have to think of alternate ways of teaching.
And for a wide spectrum of abilities.
Yeah, you have everybody in there that has something. There's something different. It's not like we're going to group them all this and that. No. So each person has a way that they learn.
Right. And the students.
And that's why it's special education, because it's specialized for them.
Exactly. Hers, they call her, what she teaches is adapted PE. They adapt the program to the kids.
Okay.
And in one classroom, she can have kids anywhere from kids who could be varsity athletes but have mental disabilities, but physically they've got the ability to, you know, slam dunk a basketball.
Right.
To, on the other end of the spectrum, a kid who sits on the floor and you roll the ball to him. And these kids are all in the same room at the same time, and she's got to figure out.
Same grade too?
Same grade, because they're all high school.
Right.
She teaches all of the high school kids at the same time. And so it's this real challenge of how do you develop activities for these kids to do where kids on either end of the spectrum and everywhere in between are gonna learn something, are gonna get something out of it, are gonna, you know, and meanwhile she's got other kids who are having seizures in the pool, and you know, I don't know how she does it. I don't know how she's done it for 31 years.
31 years.
But she absolutely loves it and adores the kids. And I'm lucky that I've got a wife who goes, yeah, if you want to be mayor, you can go ahead and be mayor. You know, where it takes time away from her. I again didn't get home until 8:30 last night.
Right.
You know, I'm here
Tonight,
I was at planning commission on Tuesday night, so the last 3 nights in a row,
Right.
I'm not home.
Yeah.
You know.
But, you know, sometimes it's like, you know, you do have those where, like, my wife worked second shift for a while and I worked first.
Yep.
So I would come home and she would leave.
Yep.
But those times where you are together, man, it's like we're together.
Yeah.
This is really nice. There ain't no time to bicker about the laundry or anything like that. There's no time for any of that stuff.
No, exactly. And we're incredibly close, incredibly tight. We've been
How long
married.
have you been? Okay.
Married 29 years.
29.
Met when we were in college, so we've been together for 30.
So she was already doing PE classes when you guys met, or
No,
when you guys got married.
Yes, we were both. She was a year. We both went to Hope. She was a year behind me at Hope. We met 3 weeks before I graduated, and then I went to law school in Milwaukee. And she lived here because she had to finish her last year of Hope. She local girl. She grew up in Holland. Went to Holland High, and then stayed here. Got the job in Hudsonville and lived with her parents here in town for my last 2 years of law school. And I commuted back and forth between Milwaukee and Holland every week for 3 years, so I could see her. And I got to stay. Her parents were nice enough to let me stay with them.
How long
at
of a
their
drive
house.
was that again?
250 miles round trip, 3 hours and 45 minutes, depending on the traffic. You tell me what time of day you want to go and what day of the week it is, and I'll tell you the best route.
Nice.
I can still decipher the traffic reports in Chicago.
Nice.
So yeah, I knew when I got so good, I would look at my watch in Milwaukee and go, well, if I leave in the next 5 minutes, I'm okay.
I can be there
If I don't leave in the next 5 minutes, I might as well wait 4 hours because I'm going to hit Chicago traffic and I'll get there at the same time.
That is bad. That traffic, you start going through there. Holy crap. The first time I went through, I was like, what is this?
Yeah.
I've never seen this. I thought I was like scared in Detroit.
Yeah. If you hit it at the right time, you're great.
No, I was not
yeah.
great. And then somebody had to pee, of course. And then we had to try to get off. And then we're in like Chinatown. We're going to this gas station. It's like the bathroom's out there. We're going up to the door. There's like crap all over them. I'm like, what is this?
See, I was lucky enough to be between 22 and 25 years old, all by myself in the car. So
Yeah, right.
So I got to know it really well. But it was 90,000 miles I put in 3 years going back and forth.
Wow.
But great investment because I got a wonderful wife and 3 great kids and
for sure,
and a good life here in Holland, Michigan.
Yeah. How old's your oldest?
26.
26.
He was my campaign manager.
Oh, nice.
Duncan. He is
discount on that.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. He got paid the same as everybody else did on the campaign team. Nothing.
No, not even pizza.
We gave pizza and snacks every now and then, and we had a pretty good campaign night party, or election night party.
Yeah.
We filled New Holland Brewery.
There you go.
It was absolutely fantastic. But he's
Epic night, I'm sure.
It was great. I was nervous as could be, and had been working all day, working the phones all day, and working social
You're
media.
still doing your lawyer job that day, the day job
No,
that
I
day?
did not do
no,
my
you're
day
like,
job.
I'm taking this off.
We shut the office down for that, and we had people on the phones making calls to get people to the polls. And I did all the social media, so I was doing social media posts and responding and trying to get people to vote. Because again, we didn't think we were going to be able to pull this thing off, and we had rented New Holland. We'd rented the side room at New Holland, and actually we'd rented the upstairs, the balcony area.
Yeah.
And they said, we got to move you because there's going to be something over there. I'm like, oh, they got that huge room. There can be like 4 people in there. It's going to be really sad that there's going to be nobody there. And polls hadn't closed yet, but we were kind of wrapping it up. And my wife said, I need to get down there to make sure that everything's set up right. And I said, I'll drop you off, but there's no way I'm hanging out there before the polls close. So I went home, and I'm getting ready, and I said, I just need some time. I'm just completely stressed out.
Yeah, you're just.
And I said, I need some alone time. I need some me
space.
time and some space. And so I'm getting ready. I take a shower, get out of the shower, and my son's texting me. He's my campaign manager, and he says, Dad, you got to get down here. I'm like, Mom's down there. It's fine. Everything's going to be set up. People are taking care of you. He goes, no, you need to get down here right now. And I'm like, I'm not even dressed yet. What's the deal? He goes, this place is packed. It's full. He said, you can't cram another person in here. I said, you're kidding me. And he goes,
like,
no.
what?
I'm like, I can't possibly be. And
Start putting on your
clothes. So I'm getting dressed. And,
where's my tie?
And yeah, get my suit, my tie on, and
Are you a
I'm
tie or
driving
bow
up.
tie?
Tie. I'm a tie guy. And so I pull in, and one of the great moments of the night for me was I got a bunch of buddies from high school from Mount Pleasant that we still get together, but they had all said to me, we get together a couple times a year, and they said to me, we're really sorry, dude. They all live like in the Detroit area in Mount Pleasant. And they said, we can't drive all that way on a Tuesday night. We'd love to be there for you, but we can't do it. And work, and it's too big of a deal. I'm like, I get it. I understand. And so I pull into the parking lot downtown, and I get a text message from one of my high school buddies, and it's a picture of him standing at the bar in Holland, Michigan. And I'm like, you're here? And they're like, oh yeah. They said, this is great. And so I walk in, and it literally is elbow to elbow filled at New Holland. And they had spilled over into the regular bar area from the restaurant area. And I looked and I said, it doesn't matter if I win or not. This is the coolest thing I've ever seen.
This is so cool.
Because it went from being, there's going to be like 2 people showing up at this sad little thing when I lose to all of these people. And again, we still didn't know what the results of the night were going to be. And as they started coming in, on the night of the election, I was standing actually being interviewed by the Holland Sentinel, and the reporter for the Sentinel looked at his phone and says that it just says here, you just declared victory. And I looked at him, I'm like, Arpan, I'm standing here talking to you. I haven't done anything. I haven't done anything. I said, we're not. And he goes, yeah. And it looks like Nancy DeBoer has said that she's lost. She's conceded. And I said, how's that possible? We've got a screen that's got the county website up, and they're not all in. Yeah. And I said, I have no idea, but I said, I'm going to tell you right now, I am not declaring victory on anything until the final results came in. And 2 minutes later, there was just this roar, and the reason why Nancy had conceded, and the reason why Nancy had conceded is the only ward that had not come in yet was the 3rd ward, which is the core city of Holland, and they had never won the 3rd ward. She had been a council member at large, so she'd had to run citywide. She'd run in 2 previous mayoral elections, and never once had they won the 3rd ward. And they looked at the numbers and said, "There's no way we're behind before the 3rd ward comes in. That can't happen." Yeah. So they kind of knew before we knew. Right. And it was and again, it was a cool night.
Man,
it's kind of fun to have,
exhilarating. Just all these people here for you.
Yeah, and then you got to start doing the job.
Yeah, you're
it's
like, oh crap, I gotta take care of all these people.
yeah, and well, right, and it's it's 9 o'clock on a Tuesday night, and you got a regular job, and and you've just been. We literally had been campaigning for a year, and had been campaigning every day and night. For weeks and weeks and weeks, knocking on doors in the cold and in the rain, just to get flyers out to people.
Yeah.
Because that's how you win elections, especially locally, is to get out in front of people.
Right.
And the next morning at 6 o'clock in the morning, I'm on Windmill Island doing a Facebook Live. Going, I just got elected, and by 9 a.m. I'm in a meeting with the city manager where he's getting me up to speed, and at 10 a.m. I'm on a TV interview with WZZM. And I'm thinking, I got to drive my daughter back to Michigan State yet at some point.
Yeah,
this
when am I
morning.
gonna be able to do that?
Yeah, and we did. We kind of bailed,
Yeah.
but I'm doing radio interviews on the way there. I'm like, my whole world has just changed in the matter of 20 minutes.
So you're on the phone driving.
I'm on the phone
doing
while I'm
radio,
driving. My wife's listening
Yeah.
to WHTC, where the only topic of conversation on the radio on Talk of the Town for the entire morning is the new mayor and how the community is going to change because there's a new mayor and the election. And I thought, oh my gosh, I went from being this guy that was kind of known a little bit in
Yeah.
town to now the person who's got the responsibility for all of this and we're talking about what I can do and what I can't do. One of the things that I do have the ability to do is to be the face and the voice of the community.
Right.
And that's one of the things I love about it, but it is also, it's this thing of I've got to make sure that wherever I am and whatever I'm doing, I'm the face and the voice of the community.
Right.
And that's one of the reasons why too. I don't know if you noticed, I always wear something orange.
Okay.
I've always got orange with me because that was our campaign color.
Yeah.
It's nonpartisan. It's Dutch. It's
Yeah.
It's tulip time. It's part of the City of Holland logo.
Part of Hope too.
It's
right?
part of Hope College as well. And the genius idea that the candidate had a year before the election was there. I was walking around in October going, all the leaves are orange. Everybody's got orange pumpkins on their porch. I could have all of this subliminal campaigning going on if I
All
picked
of this
orange.
if I just picked orange.
So now orange has become the mayor's color, and I wear orange
Nice.
wherever I go.
Nice.
Yeah, that was a cool night and a cool experience. But Duncan, that's where this started, was at the time 24 years old. He's a information security expert for Herman Miller, and frankly, because we couldn't find anybody else who was willing to do the job, I said, would you be my campaign manager? And he did just this amazing job, took it really seriously,
was he like,
control of
yeah,
the whole
right
thing.
away? He's like, yeah.
Yeah, he was nervous because he's like, that's a big responsibility. What if I screw this thing up and then my dad's not the mayor? But
Yeah, well, it's your dad.
yeah, and he, right, I'll forgive you. You're it's
Come
all right.
on,
You're my
dude.
kid. I'll forgive
I
you.
can't bend you over my knee
Right,
anymore. I mean,
right.
I guess I could, but
he's the only 26-year-old kid I'll take advice from. I mean, he's really smart, really organized. His wife is a CPA for Ernst & Young. They do they were again a generation younger than I am, so they were able to say, hey, you're missing the boat on this thing, or you need to say this way,
Right,
because
right.
I know what people my age think, but I don't necessarily know what people their age think.
That's true.
And between the two of them, and my wife and I made up this kind of inner circle that nothing went any direction unless it went through all of us first.
Right.
And they all came through, and we're just phenomenal.
It's cool.
So, yeah.
So you
I had
want
a question, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Kind of speaking on, now you're the mayor, you're the voice for the people, especially with the pandemic, back in March and April of 2020 when it started. How nerve-wracking was it to, make these promises of, the gas stations the gas is going to be there, the electricity is going to
And
be
you
there,
don't
the water
really
is going to be there.
know.
And you don't really know, like, where this. I
Yeah.
don't think anybody knew coronavirus was going to be what it was back
right.
then.
And it was incredibly nerve-wracking.
Everybody
And
thought it was going to be a few months thing. We'll be back at it.
Right.
Yeah, I did put myself out on a limb almost
Yeah.
right away. The very first COVID video we did was really impromptu. I was in City Hall, the morning everything shut down, talking to the city manager.
God, that was a dark day.
It was a dark day. I mean, everybody was just freaked out. And I looked at him, I said, we need to say something to people. And he goes, yeah. He goes, would you be willing to do a video? I'm like, yeah, I could do a video. I said, give me a minute. Ran upstairs, got a legal pad and
Yeah.
quick wrote something out. And I actually posted a Facebook post of the picture of my notes
Yeah.
of it. And I said, where should we do this? And so we sat in city council chambers, and I took off my sport coat and I rolled up my sleeves and I unbuttoned my collar because, that's, I guess, what you do when you're a politician. and we just did this video, and then one of the things that a lot of people don't realize is the city of Holland has an incredible video crew. If you haven't, go take a look at the City of Holland YouTube channel. These guys are Emmy award-winning TV guys that now work for the city.
Yeah.
And they make me
They're
look
giving
good.
me a job with them.
Yeah, they're good. Hey, our media department is second to none. They make me look good. And
Right. Yeah. No, the videos that they do post, they're the ones that do like the Holland shots and like all the two.
all
yeah,
of those.
Yeah, they're
all of that
great.
stuff.
They
They're
are.
phenomenal.
They're great.
They do a great job of telling the story for the city, and
They do.
They're wonderfully honest critics as well. And because I'd done so much with the city, I knew them before I was the mayor, so they know me. They know me as a regular guy, not as the
Right.
mayor, and so they don't have any hesitation at all of saying, "Yeah, you probably don't want to say that, or you probably don't want to do that." And so I love them for it. They're fantastic for that.
Yeah.
So we shot that first one, and they turned it around. They did the editing and everything within like an hour, and we posted it. And it was it was just kind of the start of, hey, we're in good hands. You know,
Right.
your city government's gonna do everything they can. And that first one, I don't think was the one where I said the city of Holland doesn't close, and I didn't say anything about the other. But after doing it, I got a little bit gutsy because
Got a little more confidence.
Yeah.
You're like, I got the video under my belt. All right.
And the only negative comment was my tie was too long. And
Oh,
I'm like,
wow.
okay, if that's
That's-
the only
that's
negative
the
comment,
worst.
I can put up with that. And so the city manager said we probably ought to do more of these as things change to get the word out. And
Right.
so I think the second one I did was when there were starting to be worries about were public utilities going to shut off. And the city of Holland already has. We've got the BPW, Board of
Right.
Public Works, provides water, does wastewater, provides electricity, and those are city services. And there's already a rule at the BPW that they don't shut off people's electricity and water in the wintertime.
No,
We
you
gotta-
can't.
No,
There was in Bay City, so that happened, and a
Yeah.
man died.
Yeah. So we
because of
don't.
it.
We don't in the winter months. We simply don't. And now that lifts generally in the spring in like mid-March.
So what if it was shut off? When does that start? When does winter? Is it the first day of winter?
No, I think it's.
What if it was shut off a couple weeks prior? Would it be turned back on?
I have no idea. That I don't know the answer to that question, but I know that they've got a rule for non-payment. I think it's between like November and March.
Yeah.
They don't pay. They don't turn it off.
Right.
But we were getting close to that date.
Right.
And I wrote the script to the video. The city manager and the assistant city manager heard me say it before it went out, and I said, "Don't worry, we're not gonna. Your electricity won't be turned off. Your water won't be turned off. Your wastewater won't be turned off. You know, all of that stuff will still happen. Police and fire will still happen." And I was kind of going out on a ledge because I hadn't asked anybody.
I was gonna say that's what I was gonna say. So that moment, you were like, "I'm saying this, but I don't know."
It's like, what else do
I
you
don't
say?
know.
Like, you
Yeah,
kind of
you
have to
can't.
say
You
that.
have to
Yeah.
you have to assure people.
Right.
And I did think to myself, I don't really know, and I don't really know if I have the authority to say this. It's one thing to know whether it's going to happen or not
Right.
in the real world. It's another thing to know, did I just say something I don't have really the power to say?
Yeah.
And I got a little pushback from some folks in the city of, hey, you're writing checks that we might not be able to cash.
Yeah.
And how do we know we're not going to have to shut somebody's power off or somebody's water off? And I looked him in the eye and I said, it's a pandemic. We're telling people they've got to wash their hands. You mean to tell me you're going to turn off somebody's water or electricity for any reason at all?
Yeah.
When there's a pandemic? And they kind of looked down and sheepishly went, well, no, we wouldn't do that. And I said, you're right. We're not
right.
going to, we are going to move heaven and earth
Yeah.
to make sure that all of these things happen. And I said, the reason why I had the confidence to say it, and I said this to the city manager and all of the top leadership at the city, is I said, the reason I said it and the reason I had the confidence to say it is because I know you guys can deliver. And they
Right.
did.
Right.
I knew.
Nobody's
going
gonna
to
go against that either.
No,
Who
they're-
would?
And not only does it assure the public, but it also elevates all of the people who are working for the city, who you're saying, "Hey, we're counting on you, and we
Yeah.
know that you can do this. If anybody can do it, the people that work at the city of Holland can do it. They're amazing folks. I had nothing but good things to say about every single person that works for the city of Holland. They're amazing. They love the city. They're really good at what they do. They're really smart. And I'm not just saying that because I'm the mayor. I'd be if I had an issue, believe me, people would know. I've
Right.
been able to see behind the curtain, but it was a real risk to say
say
that,
that.
at the time, but people needed the reassurance. And I honestly think that the people who were responsible for making sure those things happen also needed to hear that we were counting on them to make it happen, and that we had the faith and confidence in them that they could.
Right.
And they did. That the lights stayed on.
They did.
The lights always stay on in Holland. I don't, take a look next time when power goes out because of a storm. Take a look at the maps. Everybody around Holland is out. Holland's on. That's how good. That's how good we are. We stay on. Our uprate is amazing.
Yeah.
And it's because these people are really good at what they do, and I knew that. So yeah, maybe I did write a few checks that people didn't know whether we were going to be able to cash them or not.
Right.
But they made sure that those checks could be cashed, and that's really one of the great things that when I look back on this 10 years from now, 20 years from now, and I go, what I honestly think this first year of being mayor might be like the biggest, most memorable year of
From the
being
beginning,
mayor, no
from
matter
the
how long I'm
beginning
mayor.
when you've packed New Holland to all the way through COVID, just like the range of emotions from the highest of highs to the lowest of lows. To
Oh,
the
yeah.
dark day, like we were saying, where you got to make the first video. I mean, that's really quick too.
Yeah, that's only
it's like
that's 3 months.
It's 3 months.
That's 3 months.
3 months.
Yeah, that's
See,
3
because I remember in January hearing about it
Yeah,
when they had that case in Chicago. Do you remember that? There was
I think I had it in February. I was
You
out.
think you
I was
had it in
out for 2
February.
weeks in February of 2020 with all of the COVID symptoms, but they didn't have a test for it
a
yet.
lot of people said that too.
Yeah, I've never been that.
But it
sick.
was January. I remember watching. It was on the news, and there was somebody that came out from the CDC, and I believe they were in Chicago. They were at one of the little podiums with the little tiny microphone.
Yep.
And they were saying we have somebody came back, or like they were traveling from China. It was a woman, I believe. They think that they have it contained. That whatever that she had, they think they have it contained, and that nobody should have to worry.
Yeah,
And then what is it? A month later,
yeah. And there,
all hell broke loose.
and we've lived through
crazy
scares before.
Oh, yeah.
There was SARS, and there was the bird
SARS,
flu,
remember,
and,
yep. Swine flu.
swine flu, and I remember all. I remember all of those.
H1N1.
Yeah, and I never ever did I think to myself, they're out there. Never did I think that it was going to be a risk to my own health,
Yeah.
much less my way of life.
Right.
And
And you know your way of life. Do you take your vitamins every day? Do you eat kind of healthy? You go by your lifestyle.
Right.
One of the things that hasn't been promoted really throughout this whole thing until recently is take your vitamins.
yeah. Yeah. Hey, I'm married to a health teacher.
Right. Yeah, that's what I mean. Like,
Yeah.
take your vitamins.
Yeah.
Eat a little healthier. Like, maybe this is your kick in the butt to get that diet going and to start eating right,
Yeah.
because you need that to help your immune system against this kind of stuff.
And we did that during the mayoral videos. We did one video of get out there, take a walk in Veneralty Farm. My wife and I
I
did a
love going
video
walking out there.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. My wife and I did a video where we actually have our run downtown, because we run downtown almost every day. And so I'd been talking about it with the city staff. And they're like, "Oh, that'd be a really cool video to do." I'm like, "You guys want to follow me with a camera while I'm running? I'm not
And they're like,
very fast." They're like,
"Yes."
"Yeah, we'll do that." And again, got a lot of positive response from that, of people going, "Oh, I guess I can get outside. I guess I can do those things."
Yeah.
And it's and that's, I think, where those videos were really helpful to folks as well, to give them little slivers of hope of what it is that they could do, and to be we highlighted the BPW and the police department and the fire department
Right.
and all of the stuff that was going on in the community, and people were able to see, hey, you know what? I think we're going to get through this thing. Now,
Right.
a year ago, if you would ask me a year ago, would we have still been wearing masks a month ago? I would say no way.
Right.
We'll be well through it by then.
Right.
Nobody expected it to be 16 months. I honestly believed, 3 weeks and we're
And
we're
it's
good.
still masks at City Hall too, right?
Nope.
No?
Nope. We are. We're, I think, pretty much where everybody else is. If you're fully vaccinated, you don't have to wear a mask. If you're not fully vaccinated, you're supposed to wear a mask, but we don't ask.
Right.
And if you want to wear a mask anyway, we don't care. That's fine.
Right.
That
So
ends
we're
July 1st, correct?
July 1st, I believe all the social distancing rules go away. And again, this is one of those great things where this is city manager responsibility, not mayor responsibility. So
Right.
I get to look at Keith Van Beek, the city manager, and I get to look at Keith and go, "So Keith, what are the rules? What are the rules today?
What are the rules today?"
Because you're making them up, not
Yeah.
me. And
But he's following what the state's allowing him to do.
exactly. Exactly. So
Right.
they monitor very carefully every time. Again, a year ago, all of us, Governor Whitmer is going to make a statement about what the next thing is.
And you're all like,
We're all and we might
Watching.
have been, especially in March, April, and May.
Oh, yeah.
we would have been working all day planning. What's the next stage or what's the next thing we're going to do, and the governor would come on at 2:00 in the afternoon and completely wipe out everything that we'd been planning all day, and we'd just go, okay, start from scratch.
just kept going around work too. Like, are we getting shut down or what's going on, man?
Absolutely no idea. Yeah,
It was crazy.
I shut my law office down for 10 weeks.
Right. It was crazy.
Yeah. And if somebody had said to me 2 years ago, oh, by the way, you're going to contribute a bunch of money to your own mayoral campaign, and then you're going
Yeah.
to take a bunch of time off to be mayor, and then, oh, by the way, we're also going to make you shut down for 2.5 months and have zero income for 2.5 months. How's that going to look for you? You're going to survive that?
Here's 12 grand.
Yeah, and I went, yeah, here's 12. Yeah, there was for 2.5 months last year, the $886 a month that I was making as mayor was the money that I made.
Yeah,
and
that was
I
it.
was like,
That was
well,
it.
I guess it is good that I got that mayor salary.
Yeah.
But we all made it. We made it through that, for me, that's one of those things where I go, you got the ability to make it through stuff that we never would have thought that we would have made it through. And now that we're getting to the other side of it, the thing that really gets my brain going is, okay, what of the things that we jettisoned because of COVID are we going to leave behind and never go back to again? What things did we learn during COVID that we go, this works pretty well. Let's do this. And what do we decide to keep? And we've got the ability, and this is not just at the city level. I spend far too much time thinking about this kind of stuff and just kind of going, I wonder how that's going to work out.
It's like you said, it's your position, so
Yeah.
you're going to think about it.
And I think that we've got some real opportunities to be able to do things differently than we've ever done them before. And one of my jobs as mayor is to be that kind of visionary thinker of going, okay, where are the opportunities here? I'm not the implementer. I'm the idea guy.
Right.
And I actually said to the city manager early on in the process, I said, the way I see our relationship working is, I'm the horse that's chomping at the bit that wants to run really fast in a particular direction.
Right.
And you're the guy that's holding on to the reins in the back saying,
Whoa.
no, whoa. We gotta make sure that we got a plan on how we do all of this, because I'm not the implementer guy. I'm not the guy that's putting the list together of the 100 things that need to be done in order to get the project finished. I'm the guy that goes, okay, can we do this project? Can you guys figure out how to do this project? Let's go storming forward with this project. And the one that's in the works right now that's really cool is high-speed fiber internet for everybody in the city, every single household.
Not just downtown.
Not just downtown. It exists downtown.
It does.
We were planning before the pandemic on how to get it citywide, and the
So would that eliminate the I have to get Comcast here?
yeah, it would.
And
You could still get Comcast if you wanted.
No, I don't like Comcast. I want Charter.
You could even.
I want high speed optic.
Yeah,
But even Charter, like in my area, Charter doesn't have the high speed.
Yeah.
No, they do. Well, I know they do on the north side.
In my area in Grand Haven, they don't have it. So
This
if you
is-
can talk to the Grand Haven city manager and mayor and have them follow suit, that would be amazing.
Yeah, we're talking gigabit speed.
Yes.
And the way
That helped me so much with uploading these podcasts.
Oh, it'd be huge. It'd be huge because I think that it's synchronous. I think it's the same speed up and down. I mean,
Oh,
it's-
yeah.
it's
Because I
crazy
seen you can
fast.
get internet right now through BPW, right?
If you live in the right area.
If you live in the right area, you
Yes.
actually can right
Yeah.
now, and it'll be on your BPW bill.
Yes.
Your internet. You don't have to get
Yes.
A lot of people forget that. They're like, well, all I have is Comcast or AT&T. And trust me, AT&T sucks because I had it too. I like Charter. I came here. I've done both. But then I did see that you can get internet.
but I don't know if you can get it here. I know
Right. You have to check on your area.
Yeah, I cannot get it at my house. I cannot get it at my office. They're not in the area that they're able to serve, and that is
Well, you should
because of-
check. It's
because
another
of-
option to
right.
check.
If you're in an area where the essentially the fiber optic cable exists. My mom lives in a condo downtown. She's 91. She's got gigabit speed internet from the BPW.
What does she need it for?
Exactly. You know, she watches TV through her computer.
There you go. Okay, all right.
And she said, yeah, the man came and he put the
man
internet.
came.
The man came and he was really very nice and he put the internet on. And I said, well, that's great. I said, does it work? She goes, yeah. And I said, "Did you notice any difference?" "No, not really at all." And I said, "Well, I said, actually, that's a good thing, because my goal with this, the thing I want is, one, I want it in every single house. And two, I want it to be like your electricity or like your water. When you move into a house, you call up the BPW, you say, turn it on, and then you never think about it again. And
Yeah.
it just works. Yeah, you pay for it. It's
Right.
on your bill. But internet ought to be the same way. Internet, you ought not have to think about it. And
You gotta make it,
the system we're looking at putting together is, the analogy that we use is like highways. We're going to build the highways. We're going to build a highway and a road to everybody's house. If you want content delivered to your house on those highways, you deal with a content provider. So right now the highways exist. If you want to get a package delivered somewhere, you can pick UPS, you can pick Amazon,
Right.
you can pick FedEx, you can pick the Postal Service, and because we own the highways, they then lease the right to be able to use those highways from us, and then you can connect. And the system that other cities are using is, you can go onto the internet and you can log on to the system and you can say, I want AT&T today. If I don't like them, I'll switch over to Charter, or I'm going to use this other system that's here. You can get your Hulu, you can get anything you want. You've got this whole big buffet of stuff that you can do, but the city's not the provider. The city's just putting the roads down.
Right.
And we're making it easier for the providers. And what that does is that creates then the competition for all of those. So you don't have to say, I'm stuck with X that I don't like and I don't have another option. We're going, oh yeah, you do. You got anybody who wants to ride on the highways that we're gonna create are gonna be able to do it. And in the long run, it's gonna be cheaper, like a lot cheaper.
Yeah.
The question is, how do you pay for putting the roads to everybody's house right up front? And that's the tricky part. And that's what we're working on now. And what it's going to take, and this is where being the face and the voice of the city is going to be really important, is people are going to have to vote on a millage. People are going to have to vote to pay a tax to do it.
Right.
And so you're going to have to,
What kind of
pay
tax
for a
is
while.
that going to be? Are you?
I can't quote exact amounts, but
Well, no.
it's
Like what
gonna be,
kind? Where would you see that tax?
Oh, you'd
coming
see, you'd
from?
see it on your property tax bill.
On your property taxes.
So
your property taxes.
It's going to be a special assessment, the same way as if you got a new sewer line in front of your house, or if you live along the bike path and now you got to pay for that, or if you're downtown and you're paying for snow melt, because the people who live along the snow melt roads actually pay for the snow melt. It's a special assessment that they pay.
Oh,
but
okay.
the goal is that the cost that you pay between the infrastructure cost, the tax that's on your tax bill, and the content is no more than it is right now initially. And then after 10 years, 20 years, depending on how it's set up, then it's cheaper because all of the roads are already paid for. And this technology, I'm told, I'm no expert, but this technology does not become obsolete. There are some modules, like at the house level, that will have to be changed every 10 or 15 years
Where
as the
everything's
technology
kinda
gets
hooked
better.
up to.
But the fiber is going to be good forever.
Wow. Yeah.
Because the capacity is way more than we're ever able to use right now.
Unless we get
and we're
like a
able to conserve
tornado
it.
or something.
Well, but it's BPW. Think about it again.
So where
it's
this isn't going to be?
BPW.
This
It
isn't going
doesn't
to be
go down.
underground.
It could be. It could be.
Is this going to
underground, it
be
could
underground or over?
Probably both.
Both.
Depending on where it is.
Depending on where it is. Because
BPW,
underground seems like a much tougher task.
it's more.
Or is it?
It's more expensive, but in some places, I think that they've got the
easier?
plastic pipe conduit already
Oh,
there
okay.
to be able to do it. I know that in some places BPW prefers underground, in some places they prefer above ground. They're engineers. I let the
They
engineers
do
make
that.
those decisions.
Yeah.
I sit into those meetings, and when they get into those conversations, I just sit back and go, I know you guys know this better than I do. I'll let you figure that piece out.
Good point.
And again, I'm back to the attitude that I have of, here's a good idea. This is the way my brain works is,
Right.
this seems like a good idea to me.
Oh, it's a great idea.
Let's talk to the people who know whether this idea is possible. Is this idea possible? Is it affordable? Okay. If it's a good idea, it's possible and it's affordable, how do we pay for it? And then if I got to convince people to pay for it, this is where the voice and the face of the city comes in. I'm going to be out there pounding the pavement going, you want this. You know you want this, but guess what? Nothing's free. You're going to have to pay for it.
Yeah.
Step up, do your part, agree, vote to pay for this thing. You're really going to be happy that you do. because the people that we've got lined up to implement it, to make it work, are the same people that make sure that when there's a storm, your electricity doesn't go off in the city of Holland,
Right.
and that your water keeps running. Our reliability at the local level is amazing, and the BPW knows what they're doing. We just paid off. You know that brand new power plant that went online 4 years ago?
Yeah.
We're paying it off.
Yeah.
We're paying it off early. We're saving the
Early.
taxpayers $40 million in interest
Wow.
because the BPW knows what they're doing. And they were able to pay off like 80% of the bonds on it to save the 40 million. And they looked at the other 20% and they go, I think we can get a better interest rate if we borrow some other money to pay those bonds off. So we're borrowing money to pay off the other bonds early and saving like another $10 million in interest. That's your
that's
city
using
government.
your head.
That's your city government that would like to provide you with broadband internet.
Yeah.
I can't believe I get that excited about this kind of stuff. But
It is
But it's
exciting.
cool.
It
though.
is.
Think
Cool
about
stuff.
like how many kids suffered because they didn't have good internet to
Yeah.
be able to make their Zoom meetings during the pandemic.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
Exactly.
whether you like it or not, internet is a basic necessity of life nowadays. Just like water and heat and everything else is. Like you have to have internet to be able to function in today's world.
I had a broadband meeting in January of 2019, and the main topic of conversation was how do we convince people that internet is a basic necessity of life, like water and like electricity. And then the pandemic hit.
Yep.
And that
There you go.
and that argument was solved for all of us.
Yep.
And that, in my mind, that's one of the good things that's come out of the pandemic is this understanding that everybody needs it,
Yeah.
and the understanding that not everybody has it.
Exactly. That
You know,
too.
there are a lot of people, and I
It's
think
almost
I would-
assumed that you have computer and internet right now.
Right.
It's
Right.
just assumed.
Right.
Like, you got computer and internet.
I have it everywhere I go.
Right.
And from multiple sources. You know, if my Wi-Fi goes out at home, I just pick up my phone and I use my phone and I let my phone piggyback off of my phone and I get my internet there.
Right.
It's rare if I'm in a spot where I don't have really good signal where I can do whatever it is that I need to do. But I know that there are people that don't have that, or the only thing they have is their phone.
Right.
You know.
So, do you want to do our own form of like a city council?
Do
you
you
got-
just
Huh?
I'm not sure what you mean by that.
Where people come up and they have their 5 minutes to talk.
Oh.
And you listen. But this time you're going to be able to answer.
Yeah, if you
Wanna do it?
got people who want to call in and
All right. Jesse, you want to hit me with our little intro? The mayor questions.
All right. It's time for many questions from a Holland Facebook page that nobody actually gives a shit about. With your host,
Oh, we need a drink of water now, finally?
no,
Need our drink of water?
yeah, made me a little nervous there.
All right. So our first question we have right up here. This is kind of from a Facebook group. Says, when are you going to commit and actually do something about affordable housing? And when are you going to bring in more transitional housing opportunities for people experiencing homelessness? One mission, one domestic violence shelter solves a drop in the bucket. Families need opportunities as well. Currently, only women with children have this opportunity, and it comes with conditions. What about men with children and single parents with opposite sex children? These are my questions.
It's great. It's a great question.
Let's focus
And
on the affordable housing.
That's a great question, and the city is actually doing things, just not able to do the things that this questioner wants. City's not a developer. We don't have the ability to be able to build that housing. Only developers can do that. Construction folks can do that. But what we can do is we can incentivize it, so we can provide tax credits for it. I know this is all sounding incredibly interesting. But we can make it.
This is the answer.
Yeah, that makes it more affordable for people to be able to do it. So we can provide tax incentives to do it. We can also regulate, which means we can provide more opportunities for people to be able to do this easier. And that's actually the Unified Development Ordinance. When you see those no to rezoning signs, the rezoning that they're talking about not wanting, that rezoning actually makes it easier for developers to build affordable housing. One of the goals of the Unified Development Ordinance is to provide more opportunities for housing throughout the city at all price points, including on the affordable level. Well, what does affordable mean? Because I think that's a key piece to this question as well.
Affordable to me means like a max 800 max rent.
That could be affordable for you. That's not the definition.
Max.
That's not the definition that the city council uses when
What
we
is the
talk about
definition for city council for affordable housing?
30% of your income.
30%.
Right. So affordability is different for everybody.
Right.
Depending on what's affordable for me may be different than what's affordable for you, which may be different than what's affordable for somebody who lives on
Well,
on Lake Macatawa. So
stuff costs to build and keep in operation, so you have to pay something.
Exactly. So what does that mean for a regular person? Because yeah, sure, the mayor can go 30% of your income. What does that mean? I actually came up with a formula that makes that makes it really easy to figure out what's affordable for somebody. So if you're making $15 an hour, what's affordable for you? $750 a month. You take your hourly rate, your hourly wage, you cut it in half, and you multiply by 100. $15 an hour, half of that is $750. $750 a month is affordable. That's 30% of your gross income. And why is that important? That number important? Well, guess what? You got other stuff you got to pay for.
Right.
You got to, not only do you have to pay for your housing, you probably have to pay for utilities. You got to pay for broadband internet. You got to pay for food. You got stuff going on with the kids.
But I still don't think that it's affordable if you're just one person making $15 an hour.
You can't get that. That's the problem. There is not a $750 a month apartment in the city of Holland.
No.
Right now. Average typical 2-bedroom apartment in Holland right now is about twice that. It's about $1,500 a month.
It is crazy.
It's crazy, and it's a supply and demand issue. There are simply more people that want to live here than are able to live here. The question is, what do you do about that? Well, there are actually right now 1,500 residential housing units under construction right now in Holland.
Yeah, right down the street from me, there's actually something
Yeah.
done. I don't know if it's affordable housing, but it was something that was redone.
And people go, well, that's not $750 a month. And I go, well, we don't have the ability legally. City council does not have the ability to control rent.
You can't put a cap on it.
We cannot. Legally, we do not have the authority to do that.
But you can offer what you were saying
So
earlier.
we can say, what we can do is say to people within the bounds of the law, because we can't do whatever we want. We can say, hey, you know what? We're going to make it more attractive financially for you to do this by giving you some tax incentives. One of the things that we can do is we can say, hey, that vacant lot that that's only worth $100,000 right now, if you put apartments on it, it's going to be worth $500,000. Guess what? More tax dollars come to the city when you do that, because we get 5 times the tax dollars for it. Why don't we take some of that tax money that we get and invest it in the development of the infrastructure, the roads, the sewers that are needed to support that? We're allowed to do that. That's the kind of tax incentive we can do. We do not have the ability to say to a developer, we'll give you some of that money back directly.
Right.
We can't help pay for the project itself, but we can help pay for the public infrastructure that goes to it. And so we're doing an awful lot of those kinds of things. We're trying to make it easy for people to be able to build
But it's
more
hard.
housing.
But
in
it's
Holland.
hard for you. For this question, what are you going to do?
We're doing it. Well, we're doing it.
What are you going
but
to do
none
to
of-
control that rent price?
I
You
can't.
guys don't have control.
I don't have the authority to do that.
Let's go to the next question, Jesse. Come on.
Alt enter, right?
Alt enter. Here's a good one. Why didn't he stand for the Constitution when all the lockdowns started? The Supreme Court ruled lockdowns and masks unconstitutional. He didn't protect businesses from being forced to close doors permanently. The men who wrote the Constitution knew what they were writing so that people could be free. He had an opportunity to stand with the people against the tyranny that took place, and he didn't.
Yeah.
But we answered that earlier.
We talked about that a little bit earlier. City government is an arm of the state government. We don't
It's just
have
an
the
arm
ability.
of it.
No,
You
we
don't have that.
We don't have the ability to be able to do that. But there were things that we could do, which is we talked about the city's video crew. We couldn't keep the businesses from shutting down, but the city sure could do whatever it could to try to encourage people to patronize the businesses when they were open. And we were in Holland actually did really well with that. 2 stories that I love telling. One is Hops downtown. The first night they opened up for takeout, they had to close again in 45 minutes because they got so many orders in the first 45 minutes that they couldn't handle it. Okay.
I love that place, too.
Yeah, and they're great. And part of that,
Their pizza's really good, too.
yeah, their
by the
pizza's
way.
very good. And part of that is because the city was putting out videos promoting businesses downtown, saying to the people in Holland, go patronize, do what you can to support these businesses. We don't have the ability to be able to say they can be open. We don't have, that's again, not within our power.
Right.
But we can try to support and promote them. The other one I love telling is, as we're coming out of this, the second weekend of Tulip Time, Big Lake Brewing had the best weekend they've ever had. Ever had at 50% capacity. They
That
made
was
more
this
money.
year's Tulip Time?
This year's Tulip Time,
Yes.
second week of Tulip Time, they had the best weekend they've ever had.
Wow.
Peanut Store had the best Tulip Time year they've ever had during a pandemic.
Wow, Peanut Store.
Model Drug had the best year they've ever had.
People want to get out.
People want to get out. People want to spend money. And what the city of Holland said is, we can't go against the state regulations. We just don't have the power to do that.
And we need the money.
And we're gonna do everything we can. That's why you saw the parking spaces in downtown Holland starting to be used for seating outdoors.
Yeah.
The Curragh,
Yes.
the Curragh is able to serve more people outdoors now
Yeah.
with that seating than they were when they were just indoors. And whatever the downtown development, the downtown businesses asked for that we were able legally to do, we said certainly. That's why the new social districts are starting. The bars and restaurants said we want this, and the city council said it's legal. You got it. We'll do whatever we can to help you do it. So we don't have the ability to do the writer may say,
Yeah.
I wasn't standing with the U.S. Constitution. I was standing with the Michigan Constitution, which says the state gives us our charter.
Which is also you have to follow.
Don't have a choice.
That's
do
the
not have a
point.
choice.
No choice.
Don't have a
Next
choice.
question, Jesse. Do something about the mandatory size of recycling carts and make it optional. Also, allow every other week trash pickup. Not all of us create that amount of waste or enough recyclables to fill that eyesore.
Yeah. First one, I get that question a lot. How come we've got these big behemoth
You get
carts?
that a lot?
I get that a
I was
lot.
like, why?
I get that a lot. And there's a reason why they're all 96 gallons, and there's a reason why everyone got them.
Okay.
We knew we needed a new recycling program.
Oh,
We started-
for sure. The bags pissed me off.
Bags were awful. I spent way too many
Awful.
cold mornings in my garage
Wanna
cramming
know what-
Amazon boxes.
You want to
and
know
those
what
things.
puzzled me the most? Why did they get collected in the same can? Or the same trash truck?
It was.
And who were you paying to sort through that?
There are people that
Those
are sorting
people,
through-
I want one of them on my podcast. I
I've
want
seen-
their stories.
I've seen videos of them sorting it, and honestly, they sort it. But the problem was
That's
the
a
bags
dirty
broke open.
job. Mike Rowe
Yeah.
needs to go do that.
The bags broke open.
Oh,
And-
yeah.
and you can't recycle dirty materials.
Nope.
So the stuff got contaminated. We had a 74% failure rate. And so
Terrible.
we started looking at other options. We looked at other communities. One of the things about the city of Holland is we don't do anything by accident. Everything has a lot of research that goes behind
Right.
it, a lot of decision making.
Well, you used to have bins.
Yeah,
When I was a kid, there
yeah,
was bins.
That was before my time. But the materials management team, we actually have a team that's called the materials management team. that
Materials
studied
management
this
team. All right.
and went out and asked other communities, and they said the containers are the best way to do it.
Yes.
It's by far the best way to do it. And so we looked and we go, we got to get 9,000 containers. That's a lot of money for 9,000. And I
Yes.
don't know how long you've been in Holland, but people in Holland do not like to spend money if they don't have to spend money.
Pinchers.
So we
Dutch.
went.
That's
so,
what it is.
So we went out and we found a grant. We found grant money through Eagle, which is the former Department of Natural Resources in Michigan, and what's called the Recycle Partnership. We got almost $200,000 in grant money that paid for every single one of those bins.
Wow.
As well as paid for the educational program that goes along with it to teach people what to put in those bins.
Right.
But there were two requirements with that.
What are those?
One is every bin had to be 96 gallons,
96.
and every residence had to get a bin.
Every resident.
So
Well, there you go.
So why is there a mandatory size?
That's it.
Part of getting them for free. Why did everyone get them? Part of getting them for free. Does that mean it's going to be that way forever? No, nothing is the same forever. What we have said to the people of Holland is, bear with us. Let's see how it works. What we're actually seeing right now is people recycling like crazy. We've had people contact us and say, can you do every week recycling? Because
Oh,
every
yeah,
other
I'd
week
be
my
in support
recycling
of
bin
that.
is crammed full. Well, you know what? Give us the opportunity to take a look at the data and see what makes sense to do. And
I had to
believe me,
wait
we'll
for a
adjust.
while. I had stuff sitting on my porch. I'm like, I got to save it for the next can.
I still got stuff in my garage. Today was my day, and I've still got stuff in my garage. I
Yeah.
thought second pickup, I'll get it all. But what that means is we are likely to change this as it goes on. And what a lot of people don't realize is we have the ability to monitor how much weight is in every one of those cans. Every recycling container and every garbage container for the City of Holland has an RFID chip in it. We don't keep track
Dang, really?
Yeah, we don't keep track of what you put in it. So we're not
Right.
fishing through your garbage, but we're seeing how much weight is there. So we know if you're recycling or not. And if we look at it and go, everybody's can is
What about
full.
the garbage?
Garbage, we know how much weight is there too.
There too.
Yes. And
So
so
you can keep track of how much waste somebody's putting out at each of their houses?
yes. Yes. And
Do you even have like a record holder? You're like,
there
this is the one in
there
Holland.
I'm sure somebody knows that. I don't know that. I use it.
No, there's got to be a record holder.
I use it for trends, and say we've got somebody who for the last 5 pickups has had nothing in their recycling container.
Right.
Gives us the ability to reach out to them and
So
say,
those
hey,
wards too.
Yeah.
Like you're saying the wards are separated. You can say, well, this ward's really not
Yeah.
recycling much.
right.
We need to get
We
campaigning
need to
out
get-
there
right,
showing
we
them
need
how to
we need-
recycle.
Exactly. and that's part of that money that we got is
Yeah.
designed to help people figure out what it is that they can put in and what they can't. So I'm really interested in seeing what comes of it. It's only been a couple of months, and I know that
Oh,
seems
yes.
like a long time, but I think I've only had 2 recycling pickups
Oh,
at my
people
house
are
so
already
far.
bitching like it's been 2 years.
Yeah.
But my one thing I would like to say though is you should start. You can even incorporate it with recycling cans, but start a hazardous waste collection for once a month.
That'd be interesting to see. You can do twice a year.
For
You
the
can do for the Project Pride.
I'm talking. That's not.
I don't know.
That's
How much-
not easy.
How much
That's
hazardous
not
waste
easy.
are you producing, Kyle?
Well, this would be like paint cans. People painting their houses all the time. They got these old paint cans in the basement. Like, when can I get rid of these? Well, I'm not going to waste a coupon for Project Pride because I have a car and I don't have a truck and all this
Yeah.
other stuff to bring it there. So you do a once, then you could collect your
That'd be
data, and you're like,
interesting,
well, this would be like a once a year.
Yeah.
Once a year, we're going to do hazardous waste. So you collect your data.
You're old enough probably to remember the old Project Pride where they had all the garbage trucks at the high school. I used to love that.
No, I don't know.
When I was a new homeowner, they would once a year, maybe twice a year, once in the spring, once in the fall, they would bring dozens of dump trucks to the high school parking lot, and you could come
And you
drop
could get
off.
rid of your
you could get rid
paint
of all your
cans
stuff,
and all that
you
stuff.
could make as many trips as you wanted
Really?
to on that day. It was
Is there something
fantastic.
similar now?
No, they
Okay, so
switched
no.
that. They switched that to the coupon, the
The
twice a year
Project Pride.
coupon, Project Pride
Yeah,
coupons.
but you got this. Like I just did it the other day. I had a box spring, an old grill, an old recliner, and this
Yep.
stuff. And I got my coupon. I went there and dropped it all
Yep.
off. But I didn't have room for like these paint cans and stuff. I got
Talk
a few
to-
in the basement.
Call,
but
call the BPW. There may be some other options that are
there
there.
may be some other options. All right, next question. The mayor ran on a platform of diversity, equity, and inclusion. In what specific ways has he moved us forward with regard to these values?
Non-discrimination ordinance is the very first one that
Boom.
we did last year.
We did cover that, too.
We did. So part of what the city does, city has 2 ways to be able to deal with diversity, equity, and inclusion. One is to send a message, and that's to say to the community, which I think we've been doing very well over the last year and a half, is the City of Holland does not discriminate. And the people of the City of Holland, everyone is welcome in this community if they want to contribute. One of my favorite sayings is, "I love to celebrate the diversity of everyone who calls Holland home."
Right.
And so that's one way of doing it. The other is within our city government, we want to make sure that we are engaged in diversity and equity and inclusion practices that are second to none. We're involved in a program called the Government Association for Race and Equity, Government Alliance for Race and Equity, where we actually train our employees and our leadership staff on diversity, equity, and inclusion issues. We took our diversity director, Esther Fafelsky, who is phenomenal, and promoted her to a senior leadership position and almost doubled her budget this year to be able to work on all of these issues. So there are some real concrete things that we've done in the community, both in terms of messaging, also in terms of actual legislation and a city ordinance that is now in place, and the training of our own people to be able to set an example out there for the rest of the community.
Great.
Yeah.
Next question. Can I borrow $20?
If I had $20, I might give it to you, but
Can I borrow $20?
nope.
Next question. Institute a bus. I thought this was interesting. Institute a bus route or ferry to the state park from Collin Park. Cut down on those traffic backups on Ottawa Beach Road.
I'd love to see private enterprise do this. This is something that I don't think that the government would get involved in, partly because it's
Right.
complicated.
Can you
because
rent, have ferries come for certain, Tulip time might be a hit.
Theoretically, it's possible. The issue is, and I got a call today from a reporter who said, "Hey, I just heard that the state said that there's $250 million for the state parks. What are you going to use that money for at Holland State Park?" And
A ferry.
And I called him back and I said, "Hey, I didn't want to just not call you back, but I said I got to tell you two things. One, Holland State Park is not actually in the city of Holland, and two, the city has absolutely nothing to do with the state park, even if it was in the state. That's a state issue.
Right.
The issue that we're talking about
State
here is
park.
Collin Park is within the city and it's a city park.
Right.
But the state park's not located in the city. Matter of fact, it's located several miles outside of the city. And
So you would have to work with them to try to build
you have to
some
work
sort
between
of
the city and the township and the
docking
state, and that gets really complicated. It'd be much easier if
But
somebody who said, "Hey,
imagine if you did it for like 2 weeks during tulip time. How many people would be like
Yeah.
going back and forth like,
Jared,
from
and-
downtown, walking? Then you go through
and
carnival, and then you got wow.
I'm
that'd
gonna
be cool.
It would be, and I'm going to tell you the same thing that tulip time actually has an issue with the trolleys that they do.
Trolleys, yeah.
Almost impossible to get the trolleys that you need for just that short period of time, and it's not financially feasible to buy a trolley. What you'd have to pay to rent that thing for those 2 weeks or those 3 months, you'd never make any money on the deal. Never make any money on the deal. So because I
Especially because
guarantee you,
everybody that comes up to it is going to expect it for free.
right, if there's money to be made on that deal, and again. I know there's a chain ferry in Saugatuck. I've never looked into it. Somebody's got to be making money on that thing.
Contact that guy.
Contact that guy. Maybe he'll figure out a way to be able to do it. I have
And
no
he
idea.
will expand his
Yeah.
business.
But I think this is a great example of how complicated some of these things get, where people go, "Well, how come?" And one of the things that doesn't seem like it's a parallel, but really is a parallel to this is people have been saying for the last couple weeks, "Are you going to do fireworks on the 4th of July? You're going to do fireworks on the 4th of July? Come on. Everything's going to be open by 4th of July. July 1, there's not even any social distancing stuff. Come on, do fireworks on the 4th of July." And the answer to that, first of all, is the city of Holland actually doesn't do the fireworks on the 4th of July. The Makatawa Area Coordinating Council, which is a group of all of the area governments that work together.
So messed up. Nobody
actually
knows
does
what's
it.
going
No,
on.
I didn't know this either.
I
Before I was
know.
mayor,
That's
I
what
didn't
I'm
know this.
saying. Nobody knows.
So, Makatawa Area Coordinating Council does it. Holland participates in that, and Holland contributes toward the fireworks, but we don't put them on. So, A, not our issue,
Not our problem.
and B, if we could, even if it was our issue, here's the problem that you've got. Where do you get the barge on this short notice?
Yeah,
Where do you get the fireworks on
exactly.
this short notice? Where do you get the people
Pro
who know-
fireworks, dude. They text me all the time.
How do you? Well, where do you get the guys who know how to shoot the fireworks
them
off
off.
safely?
You just
All of
hire
those
Bill
little
and Ted
logistic
from
things.
down the
Yeah.
road, man. In
Right,
Allegan.
exactly.
Get them from Allegan. They'll come
yeah,
up here.
yeah.
I know how to do this.
Exactly. Which is exactly the way the city of Holland does everything. So
exactly. Bill and Ted all the way.
So what you get is these simple questions that seem like they're really easy solvable problems. I was in the room when the discussion happened of can we have the fireworks, and they said we've been making calls all day. We can't get a barge. There's not a barge available.
So the city of Holland was actually actively trying to get it back on.
Yeah,
but they couldn't get a barge.
That's what our people do is they go, let's see if there's a way to be able to solve this problem. They don't just sit back and go, not my problem. They go, no, is there a way to fix this problem? Can we do it? And they said we can't make it work.
That's crazy.
But what they said is, we can probably make something work later in the summer. Ooh. So I don't have any details to share.
But there may be something.
There may be something really cool happening later in the summer. It's actually one thing I have been telling Tulip Time and the Convention and Visitors Bureau and the downtown group and the city and Windmill Island and the Civic Center. I started saying to them this last March, I said, this is going to end at some point. And when it's done, there's money to be made.
Oh, yes.
Okay. And all of you have the opportunity to make money, and all of you are event planners. Get some planning done.
Pen to paper.
Right. And I said, I know you don't know when that's going to be, but you can start thinking of ways to be able to deal with this, and whether that's
now.
We do one big celebration of all of the things that we missed, or there are a series of bigger celebrations.
Series.
I guarantee you
want to
there's
stretch it out.
There's cool stuff in the works. It's not going to happen on July 4th. There's not those fireworks aren't going to be there, but there may be
Nope.
something later, and there may be cool stuff coming because we all know. And I want to celebrate the same way everybody else does. I'm
Yeah.
sick of this.
Yeah.
I want to get out there. I want to do all of that cool stuff as well. There, and so do all of the other people in town. There are people working on cool stuff.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Next question. While the vast majority of the people of Holland have come out against the zoning, why does the city keep pushing it through? Do they not care what the citizens think? Why not put it to a citywide vote if it's so controversial?
Multiple answers there, or multiple questions there. One is, it's not the vast majority of the people of the city of Holland that have come out against it. There is a group
Wards.
of people, group of several hundred people. Even if you take the largest number that I've seen, which is there are 400 or 500 people that are against it. There are 33,500 people in the city of Holland. So it's a very
But
small percentage of people.
But that's kids. That's people that don't count.
Oh, 18,000. We'll take half. 18,000.
We just want to be correct.
Right.
We just wanna be correct.
You've got less than 5% of the people, maybe 1 or 2% of the people that have actively voiced their opinion on it.
My thing is, so with this zoning thing, are they worried about apartment complexes coming in?
They're basically 3 issues out of a
Okay, so what are the
massive
3 issues?
Okay, well, let me tell you what the Unified Development Ordinance is. It's taking all of Holland's zoning and planning code, how we do everything in terms of development in the city, and updating it. A lot of the language in the code is 80 years old and is scattered all over.
Just all over.
99+% of it, nobody has an issue with it at all. So when people say, why do you keep pushing Udo? Well, because 99% of it, everybody's great with. There are basically 3 issues that have been controversial. One is, initially the Planning Commission said, hey, why don't we open it up so you can do duplexes pretty much citywide?
Right.
And we put that out there last November, and we also sent postcards to everybody whose property might be able to have a duplex. And people came back and said, we don't want that. Don't do that. And so Planning Commission said, okay, that's the way the process works. We make a proposal, you respond. And so the Planning Commission said, rather than duplexes, how about we allow accessory dwelling units? What's the difference? Well, a duplex both sides can be rented. An accessory dwelling unit, the owner has to live in one of the units.
Oh.
So it takes away the issue of absentee landlords. It takes away the issue of developers coming in and buying up all of the properties. And there are very strict restrictions on the accessory dwelling units. In fact, we already allow them if they're not attached to the house. So if your lot's big enough, you can have a separate house behind your house.
Yeah, but that's a little like that. Who all has that?
There are 5 of them in the city.
Exactly.
Okay, there are 5 of them.
5.
What the Udo is proposing is saying, rather than just detached ones, we'll allow you to add on to your house, so it's attached to your house, or
if
you could
it's
take
currently-
part of your house
Yeah.
and turn it into that.
That's what was big in Bay City, and that's what we had in Bay City was a lot of apartment. There'd be like even sometimes 3.
Yep.
And
And this is only one. It's got to be 1/3 or less the size of the primary residence. So it's got to be smaller than your house it's got to be 1/3 the size of your house. And the owner has to live there. You can't use it as an Airbnb.
man,
You can't, all of these restrictions. There are likely only going to be a handful more of them if this goes through. But there are a lot of people who still think, because I get calls on this all the time, that still think that the Udo is going to allow duplexes citywide. It's not.
Really?
Okay. So that's issue 1. Issue 2 is in the core city area, which we're in that area now. There are already properties in this area that do allow duplexes, triplexes, and quadplexes if your lot is big enough. What the Udo says is we want to allow the opportunity for more of those. And I'll give you some numbers, and I know you don't like statistics. I don't know that, but most people don't like statistics.
You're like, I know you don't like
I don't-
statistics. Put 'em
Right
out
now-
there, man, some people might care.
Right now, in the area that allows the duplexes, triplexes, and quadplexes, there are 3,000 properties, roughly. Of those 3,000 properties, 181 of them, of those 3,000, could be duplexes.
Could.
Okay. Of those, 30 are. Okay. So of 3,000, 30 are. 1%. What the Udo is proposing is rather than 181, 248. Possible. If the ratios stay the same, we'd move from 30 duplexes to 44 duplexes out of 3,000 lots. 1% to 1.5%. Not massive
climbing.
density change. Okay. Go back to the previous question. What are you doing about affordable housing? Holland's trying with UDO to say we're going to allow for more of these, and these would be more affordable units because it's much more affordable to turn a current residence into two than it is to build a whole nother thing on there. And when people say, well, why aren't you doing more? We're trying, but we get opposition with this. And then the third one is one that doesn't really have to do with housing, but has to do with parking. Downtown, right now, the downtown area, the rule across the city is for every residence that's built, you got to have at least one parking space. So if apartments are built, for an apartment complex, you got to have at least one parking space.
Right.
Downtown, the downtown group is saying, we would rather that were be 1.5 parking spaces per unit required so that there's not as much parking congestion downtown. Those are the three issues that are generating all of the signs that you're seeing against the UDO.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and so why is the city continuing to push it? Well, it's a process we've been working on for 3 years now. It'll be 3 years in August, and 99+% of it is stuff that's not controversial at all. There are these three issues that are just mildly controversial, and the question is, and City Council just took it up. Planning Commission's been working on it for 3 years. It just handed it over to City Council, who will make the final decision. Then the last question is, why don't you put it to a public vote? We don't have the ability to do that. City, we are elected. I am elected
To represent us.
represent you. I have the obligation to make decisions on behalf of the
You
city of
are our
Holland.
citywide vote.
Right. I don't have the ability to say I don't want to mess with this.
If you put
so I'm gonna
everything to
put-
a citywide vote every time, what's the use of a mayor?
It can go to a city
Besides
vote.
your other responsibilities, which you could take up as a councilman,
Right.
but you're supposed to represent us.
I can't-
to
right.
eliminate all of those citywide votes.
Right. I legally cannot abdicate I can't give up my responsibility to make decisions on behalf of City Hall. Now, what I can do is I can say I'm going to vote for it, I'm going to vote against it, or I'm not going to vote at all.
Right.
I don't have the ability to say let's put it to a citywide vote.
Yeah.
I can't do that. People of Holland can do that. If there are enough people in Holland who want to go out there and gather petition signatures to put it to a citywide vote, certainly they can do
Right.
that. They can do that.
Somebody's got to come up and start doing
Right.
hitting the
And-
doorsteps like you did
exactly
to become mayor.
And they can do that before the city council votes on it, or they can wait until after city council votes on it. And if they don't like the way city council votes on it, they can go out and get petitions and
So
put
it's
it to
in
a
your
citywide
hands.
vote.
It's in your hands.
Nobody's preventing that from happening. It's just city council
Take it up.
can't be the ones that put it to a vote, citywide vote.
Well, Mayor,
Were those the 20
Nathan
questions?
Bocks,
Look at this. We've been here more than 2 hours. I didn't think
you
there was
didn't
any
think
way.
we'd make it more than 2 hours, and we didn't even get to everything. But I think this is a good place to stop. I think
That's great.
I think you definitely express some knowledge. I mean, I know I'm more informed now. I bet you Jesse's probably more informed now.
Absolutely.
I mean,
I love the opportunity to one. I like the sound of my own voice.
yeah,
but
well,
two,
that was clearly
yeah,
obvious.
But two, I like the opportunity to be able to have people who don't ordinarily listen
Yeah.
find out a little bit about the way things
No,
go on, because I
that's
think
true.
a lot of people go, "Oh, I get it why it seems so screwed up from the outside."
Exactly.
You know, it's really not. There is a method
There's
to
a
our madness.
process,
There is
there's
a
a
process.
method, there's
And we
it's
have to
clear
do
just
things a
from those
particular way.
questions. Like that was on Holland Informed, right?
Yeah.
It's clear like a lot of the public doesn't know.
they don't
how
know,
things
and that's
work.
why like my wife was. She was like, a lot of these questions seem like he can't do anything. I said, but that's the point.
Yeah.
That's the point.
Yeah.
You ask your question, you're going to get it answered. You're not going to like it, but that's the way it is.
People would be shocked and amazed at how much power I don't have.
Yeah, they're like the mayor of our town has little power.
Yeah. What can you do then? Well, I can do ribbon cuttings. I can, but really, what I can do,
Cut the nets down.
I'm I'm one vote on city council.
Right.
I'm 1/9 of the city council. My vote's not worth any more than anybody else's. But where
am
I
one
do
vote.
have the ability is I have the ability to be able to get out there and try to inform people about what's going on and influence what they're doing. And the diversity, equity, inclusion question, I think, was a really important piece of that.
Right.
That-
That was really what kind of drove. I think you could be getting elected.
I think so too, and really that was not the purpose of my getting elected initially. But
No,
it was a
but-
question that came up during the election.
Just
I
your
went,
support of
course.
it is what.
Yeah,
did it.
I went. Of course. Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't we?
Why
wouldn't
wouldn't
we welcome everybody into the community who has something to contribute to this community? And why wouldn't we want want those contributions to be part of this city. It seems crazy to me that you would say, well, I don't want you because I don't like you for whatever the arbitrary reason is. If you want to contribute something positive to the community, come on in. We'd love to have you. That's what makes this community great. And I know not everybody thinks like I do. I know that not everybody acts exactly the same way that I do, but if you're not being destructive, if you're being constructive and you're adding to the
Right.
community, not taking away from the community, come on in. Love to have you. And that diversity is what makes us strong. It really is. Those different viewpoints
One
give us better
Holland.
answers. One Holland.
One Holland.
Yeah, and we get to live
Come here, work here.
Yeah.
Just find somewhere else to live.
I can't leave without saying this is Holland, one Holland. Our future is bright, and we get to live here.
Awesome.
It was great. Thank
We'll
you.
do a pound.
Appreciate it.
My hands will sweat.
Yeah, it's warm. It got warm down here.
It did get warm.
Well, thank you
That
very
was
much.
awesome.